The hero expresses fatigue from something. He emphasizes that some of them can only be done by him and are useful to others. The hero reflects on the tasks he had to perform. The young man declares that from today on he will begin to act in a new way. He explains that if he needed an excuse for being late, it would be because he woke up late. The hero admits that he either overslept or failed. The young man notices that his tears do not stop. He says that he will not come to the meeting anymore and will boycott. X says he feels better after sleeping longer last night and doesn't want to go anywhere. The girl greets X. She hopes that he will give his best today. The heroine reports that the guild master wanted to talk to him and asks him to wait a little. The guild master expresses surprise upon learning that the hero is an incompetent wizard who cannot even use simple magic. He asks why the hero chose to be absent without permission and why he did not attend the meeting. The master notes that it seems as if it is too early for the hero to become an adventurer. The man looks at the card with the hero's personal data: rank E, nickname, magician clumsy, age 19, height 160 cm, weight 45 kg, job, specialty, increasing the duration of spell effects. He says that as punishment he will be given the lowest rank, namely F. The hero comments on the absurd reduction of his rank by 3 levels. X notes that if he drips his blood onto the card, he will be registered. The master replies that he must hurry and drip his blood onto the card to invalidate all the work he has done. He asks the hero why he is simply standing there and not acting. X admits that he can no longer tolerate the current situation and feels the need to make a decision. The hero admits that he may not be suited to be an adventurer. He thanks everyone for their help. The master does not understand why X wants to leave and yells at the hero. X notes that this is the first time he has seen such an expression on the master's face. He adds that he doesn't care. The leader of the strongest zombie clan, Pans, is happy that X is leaving. He is happy that the bar for joining the Adventurers Guild will be raised. He also notes that he was in a guild with a person who could only use the weakest magic. The girl asks the hero to stop, saying that there are still tasks for him. X states that he has already left the guild. The young man adds that he is the only one here who can cry, although he is not sure. He says that he already cried everything yesterday and it is better not to continue. Pans also says that now the hero has the courage to behave so badly. X notes that none of them understood anything. He points out that solo missions pay 50% more so you can earn more with them, but it's not for him. The girl announces that these tasks are from the feudal lord, the guardian of the forest, and the former master of the guild. The hero agrees and asks to read the contents and the amount of the reward out loud. The girl notices that these 3 tasks are quite problematic and no one wants to take them. For the feudal lord, you need to repair his maid's magic item. For the forest guard, you need to patrol and protect the forest. For the former guild master, you need to maintain and manage the tavern for a month. The girl says that the reward for the tasks will be 7 small silver coins. Pans points out that even if he can't fulfill them, he'll still have to accept the offers. Axe adds that it's the price of his lunch. Pan says it's humiliating to receive such orders. The hero realizes that this is a worthless reward. He claims to be an E-rank adventurer, but the reward does not match his rank. X adds that these 3 tasks will be the last ones. He says that after completing these 3 tasks, he will stop being an adventurer. The hero uses the Ice Ball spell to begin repairing the feudal lord's servant's item. He says that the magical renewal is complete. X notices that the salary is finished and assumes that the light will work for about a month. The hero continues to work, casting lighting magic on all the rooms. X says that the place is really big and there is a lot to do. He admits that he is very tired from work. The hero also wonders what to do with the materials needed to create a portable wind and ice ball. He ponders how to use a well-tuned turbine to spin it. The young man finishes the job feeling satisfied. He notices a strange feeling in his chest after completing the task. X notes that he had a bad feeling, which definitely came true. Viscount Radley says that 100 of these jars need to be made. The hero replies that he apologizes but refuses to accept the offer. The Viscount insults the young man, calling him a defective magician. The hero notes that he is no longer going to do this, since the demands made over the past 5 years have been unrealistic. He cannot imagine himself sleeping. The hero declares that he will not change his mind. Bradley says that if he doesn't like the explanation, he will order the hero's execution. The Viscount asks the hero to apologize well, thinking that the hero will be influenced by his threats. X says he doesn't want to work here anymore. The hero rejoices at his success. X asks the Viscount if he is okay, as he looks worried. The Viscount expresses disappointment, saying that the hero is a talentless wizard who can only use elementary magic. He demands that the hero bring in more profit than last time. Redley adds that this should have been taken care of from the beginning. The hero suggests asking another person and replies that he is already retired. X confirms that the Viscount's request has been fulfilled. He says that he is no longer here. The hero expresses weariness with personal requests, stating that they are too exhausting for him. He notices that former forest guard companions no longer come here, as his former comrades have handed over their affairs to others. X adds that he has been doing this work for 5 years. The hero explains that collecting magic stones is becoming increasingly difficult because there is more and more additional work. X uses the fireball spell on the Orc King. He says that the Orc King found him, but he was faster. The hero suggests that the Orc King thought that the fireballs did not threaten him. The young man declares that his flame will never go out and emphasizes the peculiarity of his magical abilities, their long-lasting effect. The hero claims that he is becoming stronger, but someone has disturbed him. X is bitten by a shadow wolf and is in shock, realizing that he let his guard down. The hero pushes away a dark figure that attacks him using the stun spell. The wolf runs away, but the hero notices that she was able to bite him hard. He admits that the wolf was still able to cause him serious damage. The hero understands that he was not able to completely defeat the enemy, but he struck him with lightning. The hero notes that the mana potion makes him want to eat a big meal. He shows the report for today, which states that 1 orc king, 8 shadow wolves, 15 orcs, and 2 goblins were defeated. 1 recovery potion and 7 mana potions were used. X notes that the monsters' numbers have been greatly reduced lately, so they no longer need an administrator. The young man thanks them for their help over the past 5 years. He adds that what's more important than the number of monsters, which has been significantly reduced, is finally being able to sleep in his own bed. X is pleased that he can now relax. He also notices that he has been bitten and his pants are torn and wonders what he should do next. X decides to mend his pants with a lucky needle, but something goes wrong and the situation becomes even worse than before. The hero decides to cut off his damaged trousers and buy new ones as soon as he can. X receives one last request from the guildmaster to manage the tavern and maintain the premises for a month. The man orders the hero to start work before the establishment opens. The previous guildmaster is a decrepit old man who still thinks he is influential. The hero uses various magic spells such as Fireball, Ice Ball, and Water Pillar to keep the house clean. X expresses fatigue from using elemental magic all day, especially extension spells. The man asks the hero why he was late today. He says he won't fine him, but there won't be any commission either. X agrees. The guildmaster laughs and says that next month he shouldn't be late anymore. The hero rejoices, declaring that failure is wonderful. X happily notes that now he won't have to redo everything. The guildmaster says that he should record the violation in the report, because it really was the hero's mistake. The hero states that he has completed 3 assignments. The girl confirms the task has been completed. X thanks her for her help. The chains that bound the hero are now broken. The hero happily exits the building, declaring that the work is now finished. X expresses his dissatisfaction, saying that being an adventurer sucks and that it's fucking slavery. Now X is free, and so begins his carefree life. The hero enjoys a beautiful morning. X notes that he has been thinking about this for a long time, and now he has both time and money for his plans. The young man rejoices in freedom. He says his name is X. The hero introduces himself as a wizard who can only use elemental magic. The hero describes his unique abilities, such as fire that never goes out and ice that does not melt for a whole month. He claims that his magic has an increased duration. X notes that he has money because he hasn't been shopping before. He notices a pleasant smell. The young man happily points to the counter with skewers. He adds that for the first time in his life, he treats himself to something tasty. The hero expresses satisfaction that he will now eat something tasty. Viscount Roderick also emphasizes that the hero can only use elemental magic. He is displeased with the hero's refusal of his. The young man confirms that the Viscount is right and agrees with his opinion. Roderick asks the name of the simpleton they are discussing. The servant Eisman replies that his name is Axe. The Viscount orders that this man not be allowed to leave his estates and asks that no one else hire him. Eisman adds that this will be arranged immediately. The man says he can't wait for the moment when this man begs him for a job. The Viscount notes that this time he will have to learn humility and that he has already given instructions regarding aches. The servant asks what the device is in front of him. Roderick says the mage has created a small tool by combining elemental ice and wind magic. The man notices that the cold air and ice create an effect he did not expect from a novice. Eisman notes that he had a keen eye when choosing this device. The Viscount suggests taking it to the kitchen. He adds that he had planned to make 200 or so, but the incompetent man simply ran away. The Viscount wonders what's wrong and asks about the kitchen. Eisman notices that the water supply to the tank has stopped, to which the man replies that the same magician created it all, so it's no wonder there's no water. He suggests calling another wizard or using a grimoire if it's cheaper. Eisman agrees that it will still be better than what Axe could have done. The hero enjoys the food, demonstrating pleasure and joy from the delicious dish. The young man says he can't remember the last time he tasted something so delicious. He expresses happiness at having quit his previous job. The hero feels the desire to eat even more, but understands that this will cause stomach pain due to overeating. He notices that his body has become weaker after many years of hard work. Axe notes that he didn't expect one bite to be enough to fill him up. Another character asks if he's going to keep eating. The hero offers the boy with ears some shashlik. X gives food to the boy, pointing at it. He also expresses concern that he must eat slowly to avoid an upset stomach. The boy thanks the hero, stating that he has not eaten meat for 6 months. X also notes that as an orphan, he knows the value of luxuries like meat. The hero says that when they meet again, he will treat the interlocutor to something. He states that life without work is enjoyable, although he is not yet fully satisfied and will live the way he wants. The young man continues to reflect on the future and admits that he does not need anything, but he wants to spend money on himself. He notices that the world has changed greatly, and this makes him dizzy. The hero is determined to spend his money, although he has not bought anything yet. X feels the need for help and healing. He is offered a stress relief pillow, pointing out its comfortable shape. The hero joyfully expresses pleasure while holding a soft pillow. The young man enjoys the softness of the pillow. The hero says that he wants to take her home and that he will not let go of the pillow because he is so happy. The girl asks the hero if it is really him. The girl adds that it really is him. X explains that he just decided to look at the pillow. The girl remarks about her daughter. She says that the girl will be happy if she has an admirer. X adds, to be clear, he was just checking the quality. The hero explains that he touched the item and got it dirty, so he'll have to buy it back. The woman claims that this is a sample and therefore cannot be purchased. The girl suggests a possible solution. X thanks him for the decision, but refuses. The girl expresses admiration, calling the hero cute. The girl asks the hero to help her clean a barrel of water, explaining that her request was not even considered by the guild. The hero thinks that he had problems with people making crazy requests and can no longer accept requests. He notices that, although she likes to be sarcastic, she knows her limits. The girl thanks the hero for listening to her request. The woman says to send the application form to the guild later. The hero confirms that he has indeed decided that he is no longer an adventurer and will no longer work. Meanwhile, in the Viscount's residence, Eisman stands thoughtfully, looking at the jug. Eisman notices that the jug is broken and asks why this happened. He says that he used magic as instructed. The A-class wizard notes that when he asked to repeat the process, everything went fine. He adds that he simply wanted to fix the barrel with the ball, not break it. The wizard expresses surprise, stating that such magic does not exist. Eisman admits he didn't expect Axe's magic to be so special. He also says he can't imagine his life without the handy jug now. He offers to bring another barrel of water so they can rest. The hero agrees, calling it a great idea. The light goes out, which is noticed by the servant, who thinks that this was also Axe's work. So now the butler's torment will begin. The hero says a firm no. The woman was still happy and asked for something. X plucked up his courage and refused. The girl offers to give him a slime pillow as a thank you, even though she has money. The hero notes that the price is 5 silver coins, considering it expensive. 2 little creatures, one demonic and one angelic, argue about whether the hero should work. The angelic creature assures him that it will only take 5 minutes and he will get a pillow for free. The other says that there is no need to work at all. The girl offers the hero to use the bath and insists on his consent. She adds that the product is very popular and there is a high demand for it. X thinks that he needs to agree, otherwise the product will definitely be taken away. X really wants this pillow. He claims it's not a job, just a friendly favor. The young man eventually agrees. The aunt admires the hero, calling him cute. She asks if he really wants to become her son-in-law. She says that her daughter also loves the hero. X is glad that the girl is happy. He also notices that the slime pillow has now become his property. The hero uses the fireball spell. The girl is surprised to learn that the term can be 1 year. She asks if it is possible that it will last longer. X also ponders why he was taught this way and admits that he couldn't do the action again. Auntie says that someone came. The girl happily greets the hero, calling him brother. Auntie says that X-kun made it so that they could use the bathroom. She thanks him for that. Lena expresses her love for X. X tells the girl not to say such things again until she grows up. Lena replies that she is already old enough. The hero thinks that if she says such things in public, she might be eaten by orcs. The girl says that if he no longer wants to be an adventurer, she offers him to work for his aunt with his magic. The hero decisively declares that he has decided not to work. The aunt apologizes to him and notes that she understood him. The girl says she won't offer anything like that again. Lena runs up to the characters and hugs them too, telling the young man not to worry. X notices that they warm his heart. He thanks them both for their help and declares that he is okay now. The young man thanks them for today. The aunt adds that they are always ready to help. The girl reminds the hero that if he has problems, he can turn to his friends. The boy asks his aunt if she knows about the ice ball. The aunt replies that this magic ball is used by nobles. X explains that it is a ball that does not melt for a year. The young man gives this ball as a bonus. The girls express admiration and pride. The girl thoughtfully asks why no one comes to her. That someone is X. The hero expresses disappointment, saying that sleeping is now doubly pleasant. He also notices that the pillow has greatly affected the quality of his sleep, and now he can rest for more than 3 hours a day. The hero is glad that he left the Adventure Guild, but he is hungry. The girl with ears happily greets the hero. On the table is a slime food valued at 10 silver coins. Harmful, but ready-made slime food. The girl adds that the hero should pay for her. X is surprised by the offer. The waitress is shocked, realizing that the hero will eat here. She notices that X finally wants to eat at a restaurant. The girl shows the menu. The hero agrees on the condition that if he likes something, he will call her. The hero asks for advice on what to order from the menu. The waiter announces the daily special and informs that the hero's order is waiting. X enjoys food. The girl notices that the hero is warm, and his eyes begin to tear up with happiness. The waitress says that X feels warm, and his eyes start to water. Another character agrees, adding that this is what he thinks. The hero notices that the food looks ordinary, but the combination of acid and mana is perfect. X is happy to have the opportunity to refuse bad food and is grateful for it. The hero says the food was delicious. The girl asks the hero if he has any free time and expresses concern for him, adding that she is his little sister. X says he quit. She offers to work together since he already quit. The young man says he doesn't want to work anymore. He also says that he would like to take a walk and get distracted before going home. The hero admits that he cannot stand because of the pain. Another girl asks the hero what's going on and what happened. X notices that she smells delicious. The girl asks the hero if everything is okay. The young man apologizes for the fact that his buff spell has run out, and this happens all the time. He also says that he activates elemental magic and strengthens it. Support 1. The hero explains that his original doping magic increases strength, health, agility, intelligence, MP, and AP by +1. She asks if he is recovered. Since she works as a doctor, she is very tired. The girl admits that she was too worried about the hero and asks for forgiveness. X offers to cast a spell on her to thank her for saving her. He says that she will not get tired for a month. The girl thanks X. She asks who he is and what kind of ability it is. The girl is surprised to learn that the hero can only use elementary magic for beginners. The heroine happily declares that now she can do everything. The girl ran off to finish her business. X says that he used support 1 only on people from his guild, but the girl did not hear that she would not get tired for only a month. The group is the most powerful in the guild, and Pans mentions that bonus time is great. Another mage says that to be an adventurer, you need to be a wise person. The girl looks with interest at the object through the magnifying glass that the magicians brought her. The girl rejoices at their success, calling them magnificent this month. She admiringly states that they defeated the Orc King, the Cannibal, the Shadow Wolf, and other monsters. The girl asks how they defeated these monsters. Pans answers mysteriously that it is a secret. The hero explains that they are simply taking a magic stone from a demon killed by one of the foresters. He adds that it is all thanks to an unknown, incredibly strong guy. Pans offers everyone a drink, as they have earned a lot this month. But the other magician says that he is tired himself and thanks for the offer, but declines it. The hero asks why he feels bad too. He adds that he too has been feeling tired lately and has not had the feeling of unlimited power. Another character agrees that the hero is right. The hero thinks and says that they need that wizard guy. The girl is asked to have a few words. The man tells the girl that X needs to be brought back and his rank upgraded to B. The man states that X was putting buffs on the heroes and also notes that they could just rest since they are the strongest adventurers. He notes that they need X to continue their activities. The hero says that this was supposed to be the last glorious day of their group. The hero says he's had his fill of food and a good walk. He adds that he'll just rest in his room now, but it's very noisy in front of the hotel. The young man replies that he does not want to get into trouble, and so he moves to another place. Someone asks if the little girl has a living bear. The girl hugs a stuffed bear. It turns out to be Ryuka. Ryuka says that X is late. X explains that she came to visit him, but couldn't enter the inn because people were staring at her. He thinks that she couldn't take it anymore, so she hid there. X notices that the girl is shy and wonders how much time she has spent here. Ryuka is at the Quiet Cat Cafe and asks why the hero broke the magic contract. She notes that without him, they'll have real problems. She runs a sewing factory with living dolls. The hero admits that he quit his job, apologizing for it. She asks if he is really leaving. Ryuka is surprised to learn that the hero has no plans to leave the city. Ryuka agrees with the hero's decision. The bear apologizes for hitting the hero earlier. The crazy bear thanks the hero for his help, calling him a friend. The talking bear has been using his abilities to enhance the buff effect for a long time. However, when the buff wears off, he loses this ability. The girl expresses her gratitude to the hero. Ryuka says that without a hero, the crazy bear loses his intelligence. The bear also confirms that he is counting on the hero. The hero tells the girl about his dismissal from the guild. X says that Ryuka was very upset with him. He notices that she was like a different person. The hero adds that Ryuka even said that she would bring him to his senses. The X asks the girl for forgiveness and offers to walk her home. He admires Ryuki's appearance, comparing her to a doll. The girl joyfully greets the hero. X and Ryuka stand next to each other, showing a lack of understanding. He notices that 2 beautiful girls are in the hero's room in broad daylight. The girl reports good news, saying that he has been approved for C rank. He also adds that next month they are promising another B rank. The hero says that he is no longer an adventurer and notes that he was in F class. The girl explains that the guild gave the hero trials so that he could rise above his adversity. She says that there will be high stakes and that from now on the guild will reject requests from the poor. The girl adds that they will focus on high-stakes requests. She also expresses joy at his presence in the guild. The girl suggests that the hero ask her out on a date, but the hero thinks that he doesn't have time for that. X looks at Ryuku and realizes that everything is okay. The hero declares that he has changed and wants to say something important. The talking bear says that the young man will not listen to the girl, even if she says whatever she wants. X realizes that the bear said what he wanted to say. The girl declares that his stuffed animal has spoken. The magic bear explains that mages start at C rank because they are very rare. He also mentions that the guild takes commission money from its partners and uses it for its own expenses. The hero asks in surprise if this is true. He finds it hard to believe that he is being taught by a bear with an intelligence of +1. The bear states that, first of all, the guild must apologize for its behavior. The hero notes that he is finally home. Ryuka reminds the hero that he should thank the crazy bear. X thanks him for his help. The bear says that he can be called Kumakichi. The boy asks Ryuku if it's true that she told Kumakichi about the guild's work. This calms him down. The hero thanks the girl for covering for him. The boy mentions Ryuku with Kumakichi, Lina, and her aunt at the restaurant, that he had many good friends. The girl explains that this is why the hero rejected the offer. She says they've been getting a lot of reports of missions failing, and none of the guild members have shown up. The hero expresses surprise. He does not understand what is happening. The guild's doomsday is almost here. X also notes that Kumakichi is nice and fluffy. The hero expresses his fatigue from constantly clashing with the administrators. He asks how Ryuki's workshop works. He adds that the sewing workshop's efficiency differs significantly with and without its automatic dolls. The hero says he was worried about whether Ryuka would be able to deliver on time. X doesn't understand why Ryuki has that face. The girl agrees, stating that she has heard about this before. She says that if she makes them work, she will look like a villain. The girl says that her bear is completely different, to which Kumakichi asks X not to leave him. Ryuka explains that she knows how useful X is, but the workshop can only cope if they reduce production. She adds that the world will live on without him, so there is no need to take responsibility for yourself. She offers him to rest a little. The hero agrees and thanks the girl. The girl understands that the hero has understood everything and says that now she is leaving. The hero thanks her and walks her home. Another girl apologizes and says that Mr. X quit a few days ago. The former guildmaster asks in surprise how the young man quit, and he is the last to know about it. The hero complains that he has ruined all the delicious dishes in his restaurant after all the trouble he has caused him. He wonders if the hero will blame him for his dismissal. He says that if something serious happens, he will be responsible to the end, no matter what, and suggests rereading the documents. The girl reminds that the former guildmaster knows his business. The girl reads the document, and the man asks her what happened. She explains that this application was treated as a rejected request, meaning that the hero is no longer valid and the guild has nothing to do with it. The former guildmaster states that this is absurd. The man wonders who will take Axe's place after he is fired. He also notes that they just got into debt. The girl thanks the hero for his hard work. The heroes return from the mission, and the girl notices that they failed it. The guy expresses surprise, calling the situation strange. The hero says that the enemy turned out to be stronger than usual, and it is more difficult than a few days ago. The girl adds that this is already the 9th failure this month. There were so many during the whole of last year, and now in just 3 days. She notes that those who do not know failures speak of a strong enemy. The guildmaster asks the heroes what's wrong, as they have lost ground. The hero asks for a special meeting, explaining that he has been feeling unwell lately. He notes that the strongest adventurers in this guild are the zombie team. The hero announces that today is a special day and is going to give all the adventurers a reprimand. The man thinks that once they experience this, they will be hooked. The guildmaster asks adventurers to have a high level of awareness and the ability to think for themselves every day. The guildmaster calls on the adventurers to take their gear and set out on an adventure. The adventurers thank him for his words. The secret is revealed after an emergency meeting in the tavern. The hero happily declares that eyes will strengthen him. The girl notes that enhancing without a fight is pointless. She adds that someone already knew that it was effective. The mage says that the newbie doesn't need to think and just do what they say. The girl announces that everyone should queue up so she can give them the buffs they want. She asks Mara, who had 15 magical abilities. Mara thanks the girl for her help. The girl notes that Mara is a powerful sorceress who uses a number of very powerful elemental spells while using little mana. Another character greets everyone and states that he needs a boost too. Eyes adds that it's hard work. The hero is surprised to notice that their buffs have already run out. The girl expresses surprise and asks what is happening. She is reproached for being a weak sorceress. Eyes explains that the buff only lasts for 10 minutes. The mage says that X had enough buffs for a whole month. Mara admits that without enhancement magic she has problems. The girl says that without buffs, her magical power drops to the level of a child, and she has no choice but to restore her magical power with potions. Mages say that without the enhancement they can't do their job as before. Eyes assure that all this is impossible. She has specialized in magic all her life. The enhancements last for a maximum of 10 minutes. The girl expresses disappointment, saying that it is bad that they can no longer return to the previous level. Another girl suggests calling another buff master. She reminds the heroes that the buffs only last for 10 minutes. The hero wonders if it's possible that X really is amazing. Mara says they need X. She says he was kicked out and hopes they can bring him back. He agrees that this is the way to proceed. The girl replies that the guy who was with him said that they should apologize. The guildmaster asks who he should apologize to. The girl orders the heroes to go and apologize to X. The hero notices that this is the same empowered wizard that was mentioned. Auntie says she needs to sharpen her knives. She adds it will only take about 10 grand. X says she's not taking any more assignments. The young man notes that he used to have an absolute percentage of orders, but now he refuses all of them. He thinks that the world will live without him. The girl asks the hero what he is doing there, calling him a defective magician. The hero sees a team, Zombie, and this is the signature team in this city. Pans reminds X that he needs to be more polite to his former colleagues. He notices the hero's challenging look. X admits that he may have been a bit emotionless before and can't respond to this remark. The young man asks Pans to apologize. Pans doesn't understand what they want from him, and X insists on an apology. Pans asks if the hero is in his right mind and threatens him, saying that he can chop him up. X adds that drawing a sword and threatening with magic is the way of an adventurer. He uses the spell Ice Charm. Pans jokes that if he gets cheeky, he'll cut him into pieces. He's surprised by X's actions and asks what he did. The magician expresses pain and notices that the sword has been stuck for a month. He asks why the sword is frozen. The third character says that he is drawn to crime and notes that for a novice wizard, this is a lot of money. X says that Pans attacked him. He adds that he tried not to hurt him and that he had to go far for them to retreat. He expresses concern, saying that if he tries any harder, something will happen. Sister is here, as are the other heroes, who point out that 3 against 1 is not fair. He notices that this is the first time he sees the manager. The restaurant manager expresses surprise, recognizing the hero's voice. The waitress smiles happily. The manager accuses Pans of cowardice and asks if he just wants to hide. He also says that before you talk, you need to act. The hero reminds about the need to pay the bill for last month, which was 3 days overdue. Pans adds that he thinks he can avoid punishment by making an enemy out of the manager. The girl says that these two are better than most adventurers. The hero happily notices that the knives have become even sharper after being strengthened. Another character expresses surprise and indignation, threatening to tear the mages apart. The group of heroes declare that they are ready for battle. Pans replies that all jokes should not be taken seriously. The hero asks to wait and adds that they will definitely pay, but later, X demands that the hero apologize to him. X is surprised and wonders how this even happened. She also notes that they got what they deserved. The hero is praised by other characters. X thanks both of them for their help. The manager hopes that the hero will visit them today. The girl happily declares that she will be glad of it. The waitress asks what to cook for him. X suggests making a special dish called hanji. He adds that it will all be over if this little magician interferes with them. Pan says that they will have to take a few more people and then beat them up. The girl happily declares that they have finally received a report on the murder of the forest guard. The hero rejoices at this event. The group is in the Devil's Forest. They notice something strange and are surprised by it. He asks what is going on. Pans notices that there is no magic stone on the ground. The young man expresses surprise to learn that the demon is still alive. The hero expresses regret and asks for help. After that, he disappeared. The forester's report turned out to be false. Up until now, only X had been handling the case, and others had been taking credit for it. Now they can't handle the task. Thanks to this, the demons remained untouched, and the bonus time they were counting on was lost. X was forbidden to pick up the demon's magic stones. But the newcomers didn't know about this, and turns out the elfman was a traitor. After that day, the young heroes of the guild, the Zombie, were disgraced. The hero expresses disappointment because he lost his wallet. The guy offers the hero an option with a customer who refused the service. Pans refuses the offer. Pan says the shop will still value the sword even if it is not used. He adds that they will give him the money he needs. He also asks about 1 gold coin. The hero categorically forbids touching the sword and states that he will return for it in a month. The hero confirms that he will return the sword during bonus time next month. Pans wonders why he had to get such a bill at the restaurant, especially if bonus time never comes. But that day, the hero did not come again. The butler notices that he is in a great mood. He asks the Viscount if anything good happened at the ball. The Viscount explains that the device creates a cool breeze. The young man remembers the tube with ice and wind magic that he received from an incompetent mage. Radley notes that the princess was very interested in the gift, which will give him a good reputation. The hero admits that there is one problem: X is no longer an adventurer. The Viscount suggests visiting X at home. He adds that the unemployed and impoverished incompetent magician would be glad to learn of the opportunity to work for him. The butler agrees, calling it a good idea, and says he will do it. The hero says that as his first task, he made 200 of the same pipes. The Viscount notes that he sees how the hero has learned something from him. The young man thanks him for his help. The hero notices that only X can recreate the extinguished magical light. He adds that his head hurts, despite the fact that he completed the task. The butler asks the maid what is the matter. She informs him that the ice in the largest compartment 7 has started to melt and wants new ice when it is ready. The hero suggests destroying the contents of ice compartment 7. However, the maid objects, considering this wasteful, and suggests calling a repairman for replacement instead of destroying it. The butler notes that Axe's magic was special. He notes that no one else could recreate the jugs that continually leaked water. The maid adds that she didn't know how powerful X was. The hero says that the magic X uses is entry-level magic. However, its effect is unusually long-lasting. Acts as soon as possible to preserve the family's prestige. The butler agrees to take care of this and offers to give Axe a lot of money and a place at the table. X looks at the mailbox, which contains a stuffed toy. X declares that he will now pull out the rabbit soldier, adding that there is nothing surprising about this. He says that Ryuka's house is full of stuffed bunnies from the sewing shop. The hero notices that all the bunnies are the same, but Ryuka can tell them apart. X notes that she said she could do without his efforts and senses that something is fishy here. The hero decides to go to Ryuki's workshop. The boy uses the key that Ryuka gave him to enter her workshop. X opens the door and apologizes for disturbing him. The hero notes that Ryuka is a mage, like himself. The hero explains that magic is unreasonable and comes from the land of eternal emptiness. Each magic has its own zone. There will always be fire on the plain fields. In the icy valley, there are different colds. Magic connects our world with the land of emptiness, expressing the normality of the inhabitants of emptiness. The mage opens a tunnel between our world and the void world, using a magical element in his body. He makes a pact with one of the void inhabitants to open a hole in his body. By their nature, such forces are not very consistent with what is desired. Ryuka was blessed to be a puppeteer, but when the void took everything from her, she was left alone. The sacrifice she made was her interpersonal phobia. The hero notices that this guy became a friend to Ryuki, but he was also jealous. This man took away her courage so that others could not get close to her. X says that they became friends the day he first heard Ryuki's voice. A small animal that looks like a hare stands at the door with a ball of yarn. The hero notices that the animal fell because it was walking with threads. Ryuka helps the animal, which continues to move. She asks to wait, looking at what is happening. X greets Ryuku and says he came to play. The girl is glad that the hero came, but notes that he should have at least rung the bell. X reminds himself that he rang the bell, but she didn't hear it. The hero asks Ryuku why she's so worried. Ryuka says that nothing special happened. She asks to wait and turns to X. The small rabbit was buried under fallen material. The hero looks at Ryuku and she, embarrassed, agrees. Ryuka adds that she was afraid to ask him for something. The girl asks if the hero is happy. The hero says he's only been here a few minutes, and the rabbits are already falling apart. He apologizes and remarks that he didn't know how bad it would be once the +1 intelligence was gone. X notices joyfully that the rabbit has gotten out. Ryuka thanks X for his help. The girl says that they can end it here. The hero admits that in this situation he begins to feel like a hero. The girl looks surprised, and X says that everything is fine. She can consider it an order. The hero states that he is the only one who can help them, and suggests that they rely on him. The little animal actively uses the boost, repeating the word boost. X points to the last door and tells everyone to listen to him. There are many small animals in the room. The hero disagrees, stating that he does not want to work here. He says that they are all here and that he has no choice. The girl hugs the hero from behind. The hero laughs and says that he doesn't even know when she will calm down. X asks Ryuko what she is doing. She reminds the hero that he heard her words. She explains that the dolls become uncontrollable when they do not perform difficult work. The heroine suggests that he work only when he wants to. The girl says that everything is not as he thought and suggests that he take a little break. X apologizes and admits he was a little tense. The hero notices that the tea smells delicious, and Ryuko asks him if he has calmed down. X thanks her and agrees. She adds that it is a large silver coin as a reward and offers to take it. The hero expresses great gratitude. The girl says it is difficult to lower your standard of living after it has increased, adding that you will have to do the hard things like before. Ryuko notes that the tea is delicious and adds that the hero's magic is too convenient. The girl asks if the hero is listening to her. Ryuko offers an additional reward. She apologizes to the hero. He reminds her not to play with her food. Ryuko is confused, but eats the food. The servant informs the chief chamberlain that the report has been compiled. He asks if the information is true, that the mage has no rank and is defective. The young man confirms that it is true. He notices that a cool breeze always blows from inside the magical instrument given to the princess at the evening reception. The hero wonders if it is possible that it is some kind of hidden weapon. Grandfather asks in surprise what the hero is thinking about and adds that X's desire is not to want to work. The grandfather hears a voice and asks who it is. He expresses surprise when he recognizes the princess's voice. The girl suggests going and asking him directly. He notices that the weather is disgusting today. The hero hears a knock on the door and wonders who it could be. She hopes that X is still there. The girl says that the other day she was unable to convince the hero to return as an adventurer. The girl adds that she is with the guildmaster now. She states that if the hero apologizes to X, he will definitely forgive them. The guildmaster says that X has caused her a lot of trouble, but so be it. He confirms that X resigned because of the Viscount's unreasonable demands. The man offers to give him 10 gold pieces for the job and offer him an exclusive contract with higher pay. The butler asks if they think the hero will return with that attitude. The master offers 100 gold and an exclusive contract. He adds that this is more than expected, but the hero may be dissatisfied due to mistrust and says that he can help, but the reward is only 5 gold coins. Mr. Yasmin is reassured by the master, who says that there is no need to worry. He laughs, and X looks surprised. X admits that he quit and asks the other character to leave, stating that he has nothing to say. The master expresses irritation, calling the mages damned. He adds that he spent almost the entire amount on buying a new house. The hero says that now he does not even worry about the fate of another character in the guild. He also says that he could give X an A rank, although he would do so reluctantly. The master notes that when X was an E rank, he made good money on the side with his help. He claims that they will not disturb anyone. The master offers to come in and talk about everything. The hero replies that he came all this way to visit him. X asks not to be disturbed. The guildmaster asks in surprise what he said. The hero categorically declares that he does not want to. He adds that he thinks they should leave. The girl says that they came here to apologize. The guildmaster says that he is sorry and that he will apologize as Mr. X requested. X notices that people took Kuma's words seriously. The hero says that now that they have done what they came for, it is time for them to leave. The master states that there is a place for Mr. X in Class A and asks him to return to the guild. The hero asks if Class A isn't great. X declares that he will never return and asks to leave. The young man says that for him, a place in the guild is nothing more than a thankless task. Guildmaster asks to wait and listen to him. X is glad that he was able to tell this to the man. The young man feels better. The master is going to review her job description. She asks Mr. X to go on a date with her. The hero notices that X has changed his mind and is happy about it. X adds that if they don't leave now, he'll leave the city. The man says that they're sitting down and retreating, but asks them not to rush. The girl is surprised. The man leaves. He wishes success to others at work. X decides to tell Ryuka what he just did. The girl turns to the guildmaster and asks him to wait. She adds that if the hero had gone to another city, that would have been their chance. The guildmaster thinks that he has already spent the reward and cannot let Axe leave just because of them. He also notes that if Axe leaves, the Viccount will punish him. The man reassures her by stating that he has a secret plan. The master takes full responsibility and asks the adventurers to wait for 3 days. The girl decides to use her charm and charisma for 3 days. The hero wonders if it is time to use the magical tool he hid in a secret room in the warehouse. He thinks that using it at this level is a waste, but there is nothing to be done. A magical tool, the Ring of Slavery. The owner of the ring loses 1 level of magic, his psychic energy is absorbed, and he is forced to receive telepathic messages that he cannot ignore at will. The master says that the hero will pay for going against him. He notes that this is a challenge for an imperfect wizard who can only use elementary magic. The hero lists the levels of magic: advanced, intermediate, basic, 0. He says that the ring does not allow the use of large amounts of magic. He doubts whether it will work on the main character. The man decides that he should at least learn the intermediate level of magic. The guildmaster expresses surprise that he has laughed at Axe so many times. He asks them to wait, stating that they have money. The man notices that it is a guild deposit and says that he never thought he would become a fugitive because of Axe. He adds that it is a bit dangerous and that they will have to go through a demon forest. The hero decides that he will have to get out of here and start life from scratch. He wonders if he can overcome this dark forest. He asks what this new defense is that he heard about and notes that it is simply a crude piece of iron wire. The guildmaster admits that he did not know the city was under such protection. The hero realizes that this shouldn't work on people, so he just needs to climb over the wire. He expresses surprise, struck by X's magical deafening blasts. The butler notes that if Yesman tried to escape, then he apparently failed the Viscount's task. The guildmaster asks if the electric fence was created by him. The youth notes that the forest guard is under the protection of the Viscount. The butler says that the forester also performs his duties well. The hero explains that they were actually forced to do all the heavy lifting of building the fences, including Axe. He adds that it's just basic electrical shock that lasts an unusually long time. A man threatens a prisoner by offering him to mine gold in the mines as a place of punishment for 5 years, since he has 5 coins. The guild found them along with the master. They returned the money and left the guildmaster, but the butler found something else. He offers him to keep the ring, but only on the condition that he wears it on his finger. The guildmaster resists because he doesn't want to put on the ring, but he must answer for what he did. The butler orders the master to be sent to the mines. The man feels the heat leaving his body. The hero meets the butler on the street and notices that they haven't seen each other for a long time. The butler asks if it is true that the hero left the guild. He also says that he was paid in advance for the work, and now X cannot refuse to complete the task. However, he categorically refuses to do the Viscount's work, regardless of the reward offered. The butler realizes that he has been deceived, as the guildmaster did not hand over a single gold coin of those given to him. The young man is sure that the man will definitely pay for his deception. The guildmaster is burdened by his ring, but it will only be removed when he serves his sentence. He understands that he will have to spend 5 years in harsh conditions. He does not know that Yesman extended his sentence by 100 years after he learned of the deception. The Viscount says that the day of the meeting with the princess is approaching, emphasizing the importance of completing the task and the need to make 200 pipes as a gift as soon as possible. He suggests considering sending someone else on this mission. The young man agrees, but adds that he was told that only X could do such a thing. Another character maliciously offers to kidnap the young magician, demonstrating cunning and readiness for dishonest actions. The heroes discuss their plan of action. One of them calls Urukar, the king of the slums. They decide to use this man for their own purposes, although the other hero expresses doubt and asks to think it over again. The young mage is already in captivity. Urukara confidently declares that it is enough to provide him with a room in the basement and treat him politely, so that he will definitely change his mind about resisting. The Viscount expresses surprise and admiration, dismissing the plan as interesting and not badly conceived. The other characters agree with his assessment, although one of them wonders if the hero is serious. He remarks that kidnapping is bad form, and states that their bait plan will definitely work. The Viscount believes that kidnapping is impractical and suggests simply calling the target. He suggests luring the target into a trap with the help of an attractive woman. The hero looks puzzled and surprised when he hears the word bait. Urakara notes that every criminal organization has its own specialty, and their group is known for its mistreatment. He emphasizes that they do not have beautiful women to carry out such a plan. He orders his men to gather everyone, showing confidence and readiness to act. But when he sees who his men have brought, Urakara expresses shock. The little girl looks worried and sick. The older woman replies that she feels young inside, despite her age, and with them, a pregnant woman. The hero tries to find a suitable person for his goal, but says that he has no one. He admits that he does not even know which people are suitable for him. The heroine irritably remarks that she will have to decide everything herself again. She meets another hero who greets her as little sister, and she responds dryly, showing dissatisfaction with the situation. She emphasizes that he is his girlfriend, and he can completely rely on her, demonstrating trust and emotional connection. The heroine declares that Urakara is the only one she loves. Urakara thinks that she is really very good, and that is why he fell in love with her. The hero expresses doubts about how attractive the girl who is proposed to be used for the plan is. He asks if she can handle the task. The hero decides to test his confidence by tossing a coin. If it comes up heads, he will choose this girl. If it comes up tails, he will have to find another person. While tossing a coin, the man suddenly loses it from his hands, which causes him irritation and frustration. He complains about losing his concentration and mood. The boy notices that the hero dropped the coin, pointing out his mistake. Despite losing the coin, Urakara states that the decision has already been made. The boy is hesitant to become the bait, claiming that he is a guy and cannot fulfill this role. The girl reproaches the hero for his whining and reminds him that she borrowed his favorite outfit. The man addresses the girl, calling her sister, and notices the second hero, but has difficulty determining the gender due to appearance. The hero confirms that he is indeed a guy, although his appearance may be misleading. The sister deduces that it is X. She notices that the other character looks carefree, which she considers a positive thing. The girl notices a beautiful girl next to X and expresses surprise, asking who she is. Another character says that their plan won't work because of the girl's presence. He suggests going home. The sister confirms that they have the advantage and must stay. She firmly states that she will do everything for Urakara, even if it means losing. The group realizes that the three people who were watching them earlier are approaching. X notices that Ryuka is scared. X asks the girl what they want from them. The girl suggests having fun, smiling, and demonstrating a cheerful mood. Ryuka expresses surprise. The toy bear notices that someone has invaded the hero's personal space while they are out for a walk. He also points out that there is a man among the intruders, causing the heroes to be surprised. He stresses that the situation has changed, and they can no longer act the same way as before. The boy says that their numbers do not matter because they have been exposed. The boy admits that they wanted to catch the hero with bait, but now they realize that it didn't work. He expresses disappointment, saying that everything would have been fine if it weren't for the girl's presence. Another character addresses the heroes. He asks them to pretend that the plan was successful and suggests going to the Viscount to continue the plan of action. The boy says it is better to be a volunteer than to be kidnapped. The man also adds that it is important to save his sister's face by showing concern for her reputation. The young hero categorically refuses to carry out the proposed plan, stating that he does not want to participate. The sister decides to leave the scene, pointing out that everything could have worked out if everyone had followed the original plan. The group of heroes admits that the situation has gotten out of control and too noisy. X thinks that they didn't know about such a trap and watches as the opponents leave. He notes that they were surprisingly straightforward and simple in their actions. Ryuka turns to X and says that he was cool. Urakara expresses surprise that anyone could resist such a beauty as his girlfriend. She apologizes for her mistake. The man expresses irritation, saying that X is bothering him. A boy approaches, who may know the magician. Urakara replies that he has orders to bring him to the Viscount, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation. He offers to help the boy, asking what he wants in return. The boy agrees, adding that he needs cold medicine too. He thinks it is cold medicine for the child who just left. The child firmly declares that he is done. Urakara doubts his decision because it is not in his principles to use children. The girl sees that her boyfriend has found a solution to the problem. He categorically refuses further bait, declaring that he will no longer use people for such purposes, especially his girlfriend. The hero thanks Axe for coming to the Viccount and asks him if he can return to work, but the magician begins to get angry. The young hero expresses outrage at the way people use other people as bait. He questions why such actions are possible, especially when children are used. The servant points out that this may be a mistake, but the hero accuses him of trying to avoid responsibility in the face of facts. X tells him that he heard about a deal for medicine for a sick child. The servant accuses Urukar of how he treats the children. The boy expresses admiration, saying that he is ready to do anything for his friend. X replies to all this that he despises everyone. The Viscount greets Axe joyfully, his tone containing elements of satisfaction and relief that the hero has finally arrived. The man knew that the young man would fall into a trap. He commands the hero to begin work, confirming his instructions. The hero categorically refuses to comply with the demands, declaring that he will never obey this man. X firmly says that he will never forgive such treatment of children. He suggests going home and offers to buy medicine for his friend, demonstrating his concern and desire to help. The hero, whose name is X, is about to leave, but the Viscount stops him. He asks him to wait and offers to talk again. Rumors from a merchant that the Viscount is using children for some purpose. She adds that the Viscount's reputation has suffered greatly because of this. A girl dressed in a smart dress enthusiastically declares that she is now going to see the great magician. Grandfather is surprised to notice that Princess Lula herself went to X. The guards regret not stopping Princess Lulu in time, noting that she left too quickly before they could prevent her actions. The older character wonders if it was a mistake to consult Princess Lula. Princess Lula is the third princess. She is 12 years old, which is a little younger than her sisters. Princess Lula has an innocent but intelligent face and once brought with her an unusual thing. She says it is a gift from the Viscount and describes it as a cool and very light breeze. The man asks what it is and offers the girl to give it to him. Grandpa notices a strange feeling from the object he is holding. He uses his ability to determine the danger level and finds that the object has a danger level of 1. He wonders why he is getting such a strange feeling from this object. Grandfather notes that nothing in the city has caught their attention until now. He asks permission to borrow another one for a moment, but Lula warns them not to break it as it belongs to her sister. Hero technician Herman assumes that the object is a new type of magical tool. He is in the Royal Laboratory of Magical Technologies and analyzes the situation. The hero learns that the item was purchased by the princess at a dinner party on the orders of Viscount Roderick. The hero expresses surprise that aristocrats should know about this, although he himself does not know the details. Herman notices that the object he is holding is very light and asks permission to disassemble it. However, his grandfather warns him, saying that the princess will be furious if he does so. He wonders if the formula is written directly on the magical stone, carved into a cylinder. The boy talks about demonic tools and special relics, pointing out that there are small ice cubes inside the cylinder and wind passes through a crack. The hero answers negatively, but expresses surprise, as he cannot find what should be there. The grandfather asks the hero what happened. The technician states that what should be inside the cylinder is not there. He looks shocked and displeased, emphasizing that the situation is wrong. Grandfather agrees, adding that it is indeed a basic occupation, although he used to make engravings. The hero says that he does not mean engraving. Herman notices that there is no magic formula or energy source inside the cylinder, not even a magic stone. He explains that these are not ordinary magical tools, but a structure containing an ice ball and elemental wind magic. The hero expresses amazement, stating that such a magical device seems incredible. Grandpa agrees that if this item is indeed connected to X, then they don't know how to interact with it yet. The princess claims that this could be the work of a great magician, showing confidence in her words. Grandfather objects to the girl's assumption, saying that it is most likely a long-term effect of elementary-level magic. She is ready to go for this object, emphasizing the importance of performing this action. The princess resolutely states that it is necessary to give the top hat to her sister as soon as possible, as it will be a surprise for her. The butler plans to hire a magician. During the investigation, the story of a young man who does not want to work was revealed. The princess advises to ask the hero himself about his story, since only he can give precise answers. She expresses confidence that a person who does not want to work should explain his motives himself. He realizes that he may have missed an obvious solution and offers to arrange a meeting with Axe in the near future, if possible. Grandfather notes that the princess acted too quickly and went to the hero on her own. Lulu changed clothes at the villa and points out that the place is somewhere nearby. The princess asks X what he is doing, and then he explains that he is looking for a child to give it to. The girl offers to help the hero find the child, demonstrating enthusiasm and readiness to act. The hero notices that the girl suddenly ran away, leaving him alone. He looks surprised and worried, not understanding where she went. The girl runs up to the cat and says that maybe he likes shashlik, so she can feed it to him. The heroes notice that the cat doesn't want to eat the shashlik. At this point, X asks what she is doing here, pointing out her presence in this situation. The child recognizes X's brother and joyfully exclaims about it. Nitra asks for another kebab, which the hero is holding. He explains that he just bought some medicine for Rin. He admits that despite his unemployed status and limited funds, he still made the purchase of medicine. He adds that it hurts him to look at his interlocutor. The hero expresses confidence that he is considered suspicious because of his behavior. X hopes that Lulu will be able to find the one she needs. The girl addresses the hero, calling him Great Wizard X. The hero responds by introducing himself as a wizard who is called Defective. The girl apologizes, expressing regret. She then confesses that she wanted to ask whoever created the item to make her one. X thinks it was done at the request of the Viccount. The hero describes the object, saying that it is indeed cool and light. He confirms that it is his creation. The girl is surprised to learn that the hero can make another such item. She asks for 2 such items, to which the hero agrees. Lulu exclaims joyfully upon learning that the one she was looking for, X, the great wizard, is indeed standing before her. She expresses her joy at meeting him. The hero admits that he can only use elementary magic and therefore cannot be a great wizard. X demonstrates the spell Wind and Ice Ball, causing the girl to admire him. The hero asks the girl not to tell anyone that he is a magician. He suggests keeping it a secret between the two of them. The girl agrees, confirming that it will be their secret. The princess thanks the hero, calling him Great Wizard X. X notes that although the situation is funny, it is not that bad, especially after he managed to prove himself as a great wizard today. The young man understands that he should not tell the beast man about this. The grandfather asks the princess where she has been all this time, expressing surprise and concern at her absence. The butler says they were worried about her long absence. She gives her grandfather a gift, calling him the old man. He notices that this is not the pipe they originally had. The princess says that she asked X to make the same items for her on credit. She stresses that the royal family cannot remain in debt and that the service must be repaid. The hero has 2 problems. One of them is that outside the tavern he often meets suspicious people in expensive clothes. He also adds that despite this, he still refused the offer. X is worried that he will soon run out of money, and this is his second problem. He says he can't go back to eating mucus like he used to because his diet has changed. The hero says he even ordered juice after eating at a restaurant yesterday. The mage notices that he has warm stones, which are Sky Demon Stone, with a weak fire spell. The hero wonders what to do next. He admits that he does not want to work, but he needs money. X decides to gamble in order to win a fortune. The hero explains that the chest is a container that allows him to pass the time, while the buff magic that increases his luck in lotteries wears off. He adds that his own magic will continue to work for a long time, demonstrating confidence in his abilities. The young man admits that the very idea of gambling is bad, but still considers his strategy to be insidious, but quite profitable. Nitra greets X, causing him to become frightened in surprise. The hero asks about the condition of his girlfriend, to whom he gave the medicine. X recalls that his girlfriend from the potion shop seems to be taking revenge on him for haggling with her for so long. He added that he had already been helped once and asked to pass it on to another girl so that she would not worry about gratitude. X praised Nitra, saying that he was a good boy. The hero admitted that he was going to treat him to shashlik, but accidentally touched the wallet. Nitra asked X if he had run out of money since the medicine was very expensive. He explained that Rai's illness was not a cold, but a curse from Fala, and the cure for it was an elven elixir that was very expensive. The hero said that everything was fine and there was no need to worry. He offered to take the money and buy something for Rai. X repeated that it was only possible to buy what one usually lacked money for, and assured that everything would be fine. Nitra agreed, although he hesitated a little. The hero confirmed that now he definitely has no money. Nitra thanks the hero, expressing his appreciation for his help and actions. The hero feels calm and relaxed, which gives him satisfaction and joy. He wonders how he should live now, offering options for helping tomorrow or looking after Lena's shop. The hero admits that he has no money, but he feels warmth in his soul. X notices that even the stones in his pocket feel warm. The magician ponders the possibility of selling his warm stones to a rich man who is starved for entertainment. The hero, dressed in an elegant suit and top hat, expresses optimism and hope, asking Axe if he has thought about dinner. Lula sits at the table, holding a cup of tea. She thanks her assistant and says that, thanks to him, they will go to meet the great magician. Xian, Lula's sister, is curious about who made the cool pipe she saw and wants to meet that person. Xian admits that Lula seems so naive that it worries her. They discuss the possibility of meeting the person who created the pipe. The heroine wonders why her interlocutor has been reluctant to dine with her until now, but suddenly invited her to the table herself. She feels that the mysterious magician has set his own conditions, and now she is trying to understand what exactly he has in mind. Xian also notes that she heard that all mages are eccentric, and expresses concern that a mage might be a bad influence on her sister Lulu. The mentor agrees, but warns about the need to observe some precautions. The girl does not understand what precautions should be taken. Grandfather explains that the word work is forbidden in the presence of the magician. This causes surprise among the other characters, who do not understand the reason for such a rule. Lulu notices that the hero mage clearly doesn't want to work. Xian reflects on how unfair it is to shirk one's responsibilities and take advantage of them. She feels limited, comparing her situation to that of a bird in a cage. The older man sternly warns Miss Xian not to ask Xian not to ask Axe questions about his source of income, why he is not working, and when he will start working. He emphasizes that such questions are strictly forbidden. Lula asks her sister about it, and she says that she understands the situation. The girl notices that Xian's smile is a little strange. The hero expresses surprise, not understanding where he is being taken. He notes that he did not expect to travel in such an amazing carriage and feels excited. X thanks the young man for the invitation, showing respect. The young man reassures him that this is just an escort. The hero begins to feel a desire to return home and assumes that the person he meets may be of noble birth. X admits that he had been to this place before, but could not have imagined that this was where they would end up. The hero is surprised to learn about secret paths known only to very close people. An attendant dressed in an elegant suit and top hat invites Axe to enter. He asks if the magician is okay, showing confusion. The magician himself looks surprised and doesn't know what to say. The hero speculates that this place could be a portal for teleportation, but notes that the cafe itself is a secluded corner. He also admits that he did not expect to find a secret door here. The servant becomes impatient, pointing out that they will be late if they do not hurry. The hero says that this is his first teleportation, and he wants to show off to his friends Ryuga and Kuma when he returns. A group of people meets a hero. One of the characters asks the hero to go to the indicated door, demonstrating politeness and indicating the next step. X admits that he came here for the food, but did not expect to see such a performance. The hero notices one of the girls in the group. Lula exclaims, recognizing the hero as the great magician, expressing admiration and recognition of his status. X sees Lulu and remembers her helping him once. He thanks another character for inviting him today. The other character says he's just a servant. The hero also notices that the second girl looks like Lula's sister, pointing out their external similarities. The girl introduced herself as Xian and introduced her sister Lulu as well as the butler. She thanked the hero, calling him Great Sage X. The hero admits that he is not a very good magician and is often called a defective magician. Lula emphasizes that if the hero did what is said, then he is definitely a great magician. Lula suggests that they begin dinner now that everyone has become acquainted. Xian muses that among the upper classes, the ingredients and rank of the dishes served are important issues. The hero notices that there are spoons of different sizes on the table and suggests choosing the largest one if in doubt. He says that the soup looks delicious. However, the hero admits that he doesn't like one of the spoons. The girl next to him remarks that using the biggest spoon can be a sign that a person doesn't have enough money. X asks where the sister's parents are today. Xian and Grandpa think that he has requested a direct audience with the king. Lula says that her parents are busy. The hero expresses regret about this. Lula points to a handy soup spoon and explains how to use it. The hero thanks her for the advice. Xian wonders if their conversation was a coincidence. Xian says she won't ask him any questions. The girl wonders if she made a mistake with her refusal gesture and asks if the hero has anything in common with them. The hero notices that the food looks delicious, but admits that he is already too full to eat. X regrets eating before the trip. The grandfather asks the hero if he has any problems. The hero is puzzled by this question. X explains that he wanted to sell something, demonstrating his intention to discuss the topic. The hero says that these stones warm in winter. The girl asks how much the hero wants for the warm stones. He says it's just a magic stone with entry-level fire magic Hoana 1, which is a free material. The hero admits that he has a hard time understanding the pricing and would like to sell the stone for more if possible. Ryuka suggests allowing the buyer to set the price of the product himself in order to sell it at a high price. The ex agrees with the proposal and suggests leaving the price decision to the buyer. The girl confirms her agreement, suggesting to continue in this manner. Lula points out that everything only costs 1 gold coin, and Xian is surprised to learn that the price is a whole gold coin. Xian admits that she doesn't know the right answer to the question. She wonders why a hero who has shown their abilities wants so much for it. She notes that refusal could lead to the hero turning against them. Lula suggests returning to the discussion of the issue. Xian agrees with her opinion, adding that the answer may change his mind. Lula states that she is the only one who believes in the great mage. He suggests that, at best, 7 small silver coins will be needed. The hero claims that even if they are rich, silver will suffice. 3 characters sit at a table, showing agreement or satisfaction with a decision, with the mountain of gold in front of them. X notices that they are suddenly bragging about their wealth. He states that he will be able to demand a large silver coin without hesitation. The girl turns to the hero and says that he himself determines the amount of the reward. He considers whether he wants to choose one of the gold coins, pointing out that all the coins on the table are gold. Xian offers the hero's freedom of choice. He thought it would be better to get a large silver coin, but maybe he's allowed to get a gold one. X also expresses surprise at why there are so many of them, and wonders about finding the real coin among the fakes. Is this what Xian wanted? X wonders. He admits that he can't use evaluation magic to determine the difference, and replies that he doesn't know how to tell the difference between the objects, since they seem the same. The girl notices that the hero's face looks strange, and says that they need to hurry. The hero declares that this is his reward, and expresses confidence in his choice. The girl doubts the hero's choice. She asks if he is sure of the right decision. Lula stands next to Sheena, expressing her faith in the great magician, showing support and respect. Sheena notes that the desire not to work did not make the hero greedy. The girl asks the hero, Mr. X, if he is willing to share his features. She expresses interest and willingness to learn more about his abilities. Its specialty is to increase the duration of spells, which is very useful. It admits that using only elementary magic can be difficult. The heroine notes that elementary magic is too weak for serious tasks. X reveals that he studied advanced magic, but discarded it. The girl expresses surprise upon learning that the hero has discarded an entire tier of magic. She feels like a bird in a cage, pointing out the limitations she feels due to her royal family. Xian asks if he regrets his choice. He believes that he chose his path and does not know whether it was easy or difficult. The hero says that he is an incompetent person and is becoming more incompetent with each passing moment. The girl notices that the hero has thrown away his own advantages. Xian reveals that she thought it was her destiny to marry under the minister's orders, feeling doomed to do so. She adds that if the hero is willing to give up his advantages, he can be free. The girl, introducing herself as Lula Whiting, announces that she recognizes the hero as a great magician. Lula sternly tells the hero to never call himself incompetent again. The hero thanks the girl for her words, demonstrating joy and gratitude. The girl thanks the hero for a pleasant time, stating that she enjoyed it too. She promises to take care of the stones. The girl asks him to come again. X says goodbye to Lula. X thinks about the guide who won't return. He notices a gold coin. The hero is not sure if the coin is real and decides to check it. He says that if it is real, he will return with 10 large silver coins. Xian expresses surprise at the large amount of gold coins and asks what to do with them. Grandfather confirms that he is aware of the situation. Xian states that she will make sure that the gold comes to him naturally. From the moment Lula acknowledged X, he officially became a great mage of the royal family. It is also stated that X had not heard of this as he thought it was a fiction. X was suddenly registered as a top-ranking sorcerer. The Academy of Mages is a huge organization, similar to an adventurer's guild. The documents show that X is ranked 9th. The hero expresses doubt, stating that he has not heard of such a person. He suggests that it may be the king's illegitimate child. The old mage adds that the princess may have been joking too much. The employee notes that they still don't know who X is. The magician suggests repeating the search from the beginning, saying it is ridiculous. Teacher Cougar offers his help in finding the student. The girl conducts a worldwide search for the name X. The search results show that X is currently not working. Cougar notes that nothing was found, showing surprise or disappointment. The documents indicate that X was previously an E-rank Adventurers Guild member. His nickname is Defective Mage. Owl expresses satisfaction, stating that this is all she found. The old man wonders why he needed to join the guild if he wasn't planning on working there. The girl suggests calming down, suggesting that X might have only joined once for a disguise. Owl again sees information about X being in the Adventurers Guild with a D rank and the nickname Defective Mage, to which the mage is surprised that the hero was just demoted. Cougar adds that this cannot be true for a man who became a great magician. The girl expresses surprise, stating that the choice was accurate. The girl asks why the counter magic was completely ineffective. She looks worried and doesn't understand what's going on. The heroine wonders what it even means when she mentions Great Wizard X. X learned magic from the High Elves in the Red Forest and was recommended to join the Adventurers Guild. However, when he tried to join their ranks, he was ridiculed for the sacrifice of basic magic. Lula explains that X is now officially a mage, as she has appointed him a great mage. The butler suggests that the others will be very surprised by this fact. The heroes note that they have no idea how this all happened, but they have set up traps to track them. X is asked his name. The hero suggests the name X and adds that it seems like Iku's would be correct. Another character says that if you ignore the pronunciation, the names are indeed similar. He expresses support for the hero. X agrees that walking is good for your health. He decides to go for a walk and think about what to do today. The girl suggests working together or playing with Ryuka. X offers to invite him to join them or buy something for Nitra and her sister Rai. The hero notices that Nitra looks bored after they find all the treasures in the moat. The young man asks if it is a coincidence that he met Lena. The woman offers him the cloud cakes he wanted. X says she's afraid he has other plans. Hero confirms that he did want them. They also tell X that some nervous girl was looking for him, to which he replies that he doesn't know anyone like that. It turned out that the girl didn't have any stuffed animal. The girl says goodbye and adds that Mr. Axe will have to return soon. The hero wonders who could be looking for him so actively. He expresses surprise, asking if such people really exist. Another girl exclaims joyfully because she found this magician. X notices the fear in the girl's eyes and says that he has seen her somewhere before. The girl asks the hero to quickly use a buff spell on her. He adds that the buffs were clearly unnecessary. The hero replies that he does not want to use the buff spell, as it is better to rest than to continue in the same spirit. She also asks how much she should pay the hero or if he needs money. X notices that everyone is looking at them and suggests that she think about whether she needs this spell. The girl asks the hero to do the same thing again because only he was special. The girl claims that she is the most popular in the city and is ready to pay for it with her body. Another girl firmly orders the first girl to move away from the hero, demonstrating a defensive stance and dissatisfaction with her behavior. X asks the other girl if she is Mara, an S-rank adventurer. He also wonders if she is going to help him. Mara happily declares that X will spend the night with her. The girl is categorically against spending the night with the first girl. Mara uses the Shadowbird spell. The girl asks the hero not to leave, but she is bound by Mara's magic. The hero notices that where he fell is comfortable, comparing them to the most luxurious pillows. Mara demands buffs from him, demonstrating persistence and desire to obtain magical enhancements. The girl invites the hero to tell her about what she does so that he can make an informed choice. Sira says that just a few days ago, she was hooked by the idea of the great old woman. The hero wonders if she really exists. Shrouded in a dark hood with various names, the desire of eternity, the fortune-telling witch whose body is trapped in the void, the one who sees the future, and the one who has lived for thousands of years, this character raises questions about his true identity. The character says to be calm, listen, and avoid certain things. He also mentions a new type of defense called Forest Guard. A talisman called Buff 1 will help overcome the obstacle. She adds that this is what the witch said earlier. X expresses disappointment, stating that he ran out of magic because of this. Sira thanks him, breathing a sigh of relief. She wonders if it was necessary to be so stubborn. X apologizes to her for dragging her into this situation. The girl introduces herself as Mara Ion without X's magic. She admits that she is not feeling well right now. The girl, who introduces herself as Mara Ion, states that she feels sick without X's magic. Sira asks the hero to do whatever he wants with her, because she does not receive income unless she sells her research. X says that there is no need to be stupid and reminds that he will pay the money after the research is sold. The girl thanks him for his support. The hero explains that the protection is magic, so it is impossible to prove its structure. He adds that this is why he came to this city to investigate rumors about a new type of protection. He adds that it was simply a stun. The hero explains that lightning created by magic is energy without a power source, and is simply the result of technique. The girl wonders if she might have chosen the wrong approach. She says that while magic may be impossible, electrical discharges can be created through science. X asks Sira why she works so hard. She replies that her sense of mission is the main reason for her diligence. She admits that this is childish nonsense, but she wants to be great and for everyone to look up to her. She asks if she has offended him. The hero understands the reasons for her work and considers it normal. Mara replies that she does not want to do it. The girl expresses the difficulty of forgetting children's gratitude. Mara thanks X for his help and support. The heroine suggested repeating their meeting sometime later. They happily note that it was fun and interesting. The hero says that he finally came to play. He notices that Ryuka almost never leaves the house, but decides to come in anyway. The hero explains to Ryuka that he is here to play, although he understands that this may come as a surprise to her. The girl with the cake and other characters greet the hero. They congratulate him on his position as a great magician, showing respect and joy. The boy reminds Ryuka that she was wrong to suggest reading the newspaper. She says, X, pointing at the hero. The hero denies that it is not him, claiming that it is Mr. Ekus. The hero points to a newspaper headline where the name X is written in large letters. He hints that if you remove one letter, it will become clear who we are talking about. Ryuka, next to him, asks what all this circus is about, expressing bewilderment at what is happening. There is a large cake on the table, and the hero assures that it is very tasty. X proudly declares himself the Great Wizard X, showing confidence in his new role. The girl asks when she will come back to work, indicating the need to continue their activities or meetings. Ryuka asks the hero if he is going to leave, pointing out that his money will soon run out. The hero responds in surprise that Ryuka has already worked and made an excellent cake. The girl speaks happily, expressing enthusiasm. He admits that he sold the warm stone for a gold coin, demonstrating success in trade. X replies that it is his thing and can be used with something else. Teddy Bear suggests using the decoration for heating. Ryuka suggests using a former pocket watch for this purpose and notes that the metal heats up easily. X suggests giving the bear cub to Kumu, but he is against it and says that it will burn. Ryuka also asks the hero not to be rude to the animal. X calms the girl down, saying that there is no need to worry because the magical flame is different from the usual one and will not burn. The hero adds that the fire that enchants the wood will not turn it into coal, confirming the safety of the situation. The little animal suggests doing something, and the hero agrees. Another animal, similar to a hare, also joins in the participation. This moment is connected to cold addiction and fever of joy of life. The hero casts a spell that calls the warmth of summer into the characters' hearts. Two cute animals, similar to plush toys, express pleasure and joy. Ryuka hugs one of the animals, calling it Kuma. She says that it is so warm, showing warmth and affection. The girl notes that the animal seems alive, and Hiro admits that it really is. X is glad that everyone liked his idea. The girl asks the hero X to move away. The hero asks if she is jealous of the doll, to which he states that it is her duty. The hero confirms that it is indeed about the cake. He asks if he can help with anything. The girl asks the hero X to listen to her. She says that there is one place where she wants to go. The hero announces that he has come for Ryuka. He joyfully calls her by name. Ryuka responds to the hero's greeting with surprise and joy. The girl says that the music festival will be in Shiptown. She also admits that she was so excited that she couldn't sleep last night. The hero replied that it would be fun. He notices that the coachman is in a good mood. The hero says that the only way to get to the neighboring town is by carriage, and he cannot thank Ryuka for that. The hero asks Ryuka if she left the rabbits at home. Ryuka is worried because she has never been on vacation. Kuma calms her down and says that the heroes will apologize to the other toys later. The young man notices that the Viccount has promised to distribute these pipes to the nobles, and time is running out. He emphasizes that AX must be forced to make 200 of these pipes as soon as possible. The girl asks the boy who he is, showing surprise and a desire to know more about his personality. He adds that he is the Viscount's butler. The girl replies that the gentleman has been absent for 3 days. The butler thinks it's strange that the girl in Ax's room is playing maid, even though he himself reproaches others for it. Another character asks who is there, having heard the noise. The hero is sure he has seen this man before. Nitra points out that this is the Viscount's assistant. Rai confirms that it was actually she who was sick at that moment. The girl confesses that her illness was not a cold but a curse of the headlight. She tells how Mr. X helped her, giving his money to save her. The girl is happy that she can freely use Mr. X's room until they find a new place to live. They notice that even after the fire, they were able to maintain this opportunity. The hero admits that he created a false impression of the magician, and adds that this man is actually good. Nitra also mentions that the great mage constantly treats her to kebabs. The girl calls Nitra and says that it is a secret. The man remarks that it is impossible to believe that someone can be made to call him a great magician using only elementary magic. The butler decides to pretend that he did not hear the conversation. The butler understands that X is unlikely to return anytime soon and leaves the heroes. The hero assumes that X is most likely heading to Shiptown. He notices that the grimoires on the gates can leave the ID details of those who come and go. The butler notes that the territorial army has been notified of the situation. He says that if the grimoire has the name X on it, it must be guarded. If anyone does not have identification, they must be detained. The man adds that X is currently on vacation and that they agreed to make 200 tubes before he left. He says he won't get out of this situation easily. The second morning in the small town of Shiptown began calmly and measuredly. X carefully knocked on the door of Ryuki's room. He smoothly opened the door and froze on the threshold, seeing her, who still looked sleepy and a little untidy after sleep. Despite her morning sluggishness, she smiled at him, as if greeting the new morning and the hero himself, and quietly wished him good morning. X said he had prepared milk for her for breakfast. She accepted it gratefully. They settled down together on the bed, sitting next to each other in the cozy space of the small room. The girl apologized to the young man for not being able to go with him to the music festival, regretting that she missed the opportunity to spend time together. X reassured her that there was no need to worry about it. Everything had gone perfectly. He had especially enjoyed the carriage ride. He reminded them again how far they had come and tried to think of something else to talk about. In the conversation, he added that the guildmaster, for some reason, destroyed his old map, and now he would like to make a new one for himself in order to continue his business. She was quite surprised by this confession. Now it became clear to her why he had no identification and why he seemed a little strange. X stood behind her, beaming with joy and hope, while she looked at him with irritation. Their conversation continued, and she admitted that she was happy with how things turned out, because now X could become a great magician. In response, he said that he planned to become a merchant of his goods. Bowing his head, he announced that he was going to go make a new guild map. Ryuka, sitting thoughtfully on the bed and tightly clenching her fists, thought for a long time about the current situation and then suddenly said that she would go with him. He tried to explain that she didn't have to accompany him, but she turned away and firmly said that he might get into trouble if she didn't go along. He began to convince her that he was not so weak, that he could cope on his own, and that everything would be fine. But at that moment, a teddy bear flew up to him. The bear cub began to whisper quietly in his ear, explaining that it was about girls who could fall in love with a young man, and that Ryuka was afraid of such circumstances and emotions. Standing with the plush animal on his shoulder, the guy thought about what was said, and a new thought occurred to him that might help solve the problem. He assured the heroine that everything would be fine even if he made new friends, but she replied that she considered them her best friends. X heard her harsh words that he didn't understand anything and thought about her accusation. They walked along the quiet streets of the city, looking around carefully. X thought that they would quickly reach the trading guild and quickly resolve their business, while Ryuka walked alongside, lost in her thoughts. She said she felt someone's eyes on her. When he asked where exactly these glances were coming from, she replied that they were women watching her. He was deep in thought, but Ryuka, looking at him with anger and displeasure, abruptly stopped him. They finally arrived at the commercial guild, where they were met by a female employee. The guys explained that they only needed a guild card, but the woman noted that they could live just fine without it. The bear, unable to bear the employee's stubbornness, intervened and demanded that she stop being so adamant and agreed to their request. The woman was shocked to see the talking toy, and at that moment X quickly ran away from there so as not to complicate the situation. Returning to Ryuka, he said that if the bear spoke, even the bravest person would be frightened. At that moment, they turned around and saw the tail of their pursuer flash behind them. Two strangers were peeking out from behind a wooden box. The hero was stunned by what he saw and was truly scared, realizing that they were being followed. Despite their fear, the pursuers apologized, came out to meet them, and promised that they would not harm them, offering to follow them, which surprised the boys. They said that everything would happen very quickly, and soon they found themselves on a large ship. They were told to come in, saying that the gentleman was already waiting for them on board. The heroes stood there, wondering what exactly they wanted from them in this mysterious place. In a spacious room, a girl sat on a chair, resting her palm on her cheek. Ryuka couldn't help but ask X who the woman was, who greeted them so warmly. The girl, hearing the question, introduced herself as Queen Amina. The boys greeted her politely, said their names, and listened respectfully to the queen. She responded by ordering the servants to leave the room. They asked how they could help the queen, wishing to show their goodwill and respect. The queen replied that she had recently received an unusual report. Smiling, she admitted that her curiosity had gotten the better of her and she couldn't resist intervening. X stood in slight shock from this turn of events, not expecting to hear such a confession. Meanwhile, the queen settled herself comfortably in the chair. She gently propped her cheeks up with her hands, watching X's reaction. The queen suddenly became interested in Ryuki's handbag and asked where she got such an unusual thing. Amin admitted that she is a big fan of the Crazy Doll brand and dreams of finding out how she can get a similar bag for herself. The boys wondered if the queen had really invited them just to find out more about the bag. X turned to her tensely, waiting for an answer. Ryuka said with a slight smirk that X wasn't very popular, and that was why the queen felt so sorry to watch them. He became embarrassed and said that he was very ashamed of such an assessment, opening his mouth as if he wanted to object to something but could not find the words. The legend of the hero's great popularity was never launched. He covered his face with his hands, as if trying to hide his awkwardness and inner embarrassment. The queen looked at them in surprise, not understanding the reason for their strange behavior. She asked again where they got this bag from. Ryuka whispered to her companion that she did not want to reveal the origin of the bag to the queen. Meanwhile, the hero stood with his face covered by his hands. The heroine remained silent, showing reluctance to tell the queen, and X quietly confirmed that he understood her position and respected her decision. The queen asked what was going on, but the young man decided to introduce himself again in order to avoid creating an awkward atmosphere and explain the situation. He revealed that Ryuka was the designer of the Crazy Doll collection, which aroused genuine interest and surprise in the queen. The queen, her mouth open in surprise, admitted that she was a big fan of Ryuki's work. A little embarrassed, Amin asked if it would be possible to place an order with Ryuki herself, expressing sincere interest and admiration for her work. He began to explain that she did not just look at the money, but also cared about each client, putting her soul into her business. The queen asked about his relationship with the girl. She winked at him and exclaimed with a smile, assuming that he was Ryuki's boyfriend, causing a slight embarrassment to both of them. X hesitated, not knowing how to answer, and the girl with a funny expression on her face commented on the situation, noting that the queen had gotten a little ahead of herself. The queen couldn't believe her ears from happiness and exclaimed, and her mood became even more elevated and brighter. She said that she was in a great mood and that the boys could ask her for anything they wanted. The guests were stunned by such generosity. The bear cub whispered to the young man that it was time to get an ID card, reminding him of important matters. The queen heard this and asked if Axe really did not have an ID. He began to explain. She responded positively, promising to fulfill their wish, and the boys could not believe their ears at such unexpected luck. They were brought a priest's medal. At first they doubted whether it was really what they were shown. The queen explained that the medal was intended for gifted individuals and could be used as identification. At that moment, the heroine quietly tugged at Axe's sleeve, attracting his attention. He turned to her, feeling her support. She looked at the medal with tenderness and said that everything fit together perfectly. Her gaze was full of kindness and confidence. He agreed that this was indeed the case, and together they thanked Queen Amine for her generosity and assistance. She said that the medal comes with various privileges and advantages, which caused a real shock among the children. With a slight grin on her face, the queen began to tell them what exactly awaited them next. She informed them that they were entitled to a free drink at the bar. The young man joked and asked if there would be alcoholic drinks. The monarch asked if the guests were happy about such a rare privilege, which could become a real salvation in the future. Then she suggested that they listen to music. The girl stood motionless while her companion explained that she was not too fond of large crowds. This caused confusion in the owner of the throne. The heroine noted that she herself did not have to attend the festival and looked at the young artist. She said she planned to transfer the musicians to her ship. The listeners, having settled in comfortably, enjoyed the sounds, understanding what power and influence wealthy people have. The young man was amazed and delighted by what was happening. However, soon the assembled people announced that it was time for them to return to their tent. Coming closer, she asked why they would not like to stay the night. The teddy bear immediately showed dissatisfaction and declared that their home was much more spacious and comfortable than this place. His companion tried to calm the situation, assuring him that everything was fine. The monarch cheerfully said that she would be interested to see this tent with her own eyes. At that moment, the ship began to slowly rise into the air. The guy was delighted with what was happening, enjoying every moment. The alert level rose to 3, and the throne's owner hurried to the wheelhouse to sort out the situation. She cried out in alarm and ran quickly through the corridors, leaving her companions to wait for news. Opening the door with a serious expression, she entered the wheelhouse, where her intrigued companion stood silently behind her. The queen asked what had happened and was informed of the appearance of a suspicious castle of unknown origin. Lost in thought, she pressed her palms to the door, turned to the young man, and began to outline the current situation. With a slight smile, he explained that the castle he had described was their tent. The owner of the throne was astonished by what she heard. It caused her real shock. After receiving the information, the alarm was lifted. Gratitude was expressed for the assistance and transport provided, to which the queen replied that she was always happy to lend a helping hand. Once at the castle, she expressed admiration for its scale. The monarch announced an upcoming event that was to take place here tomorrow. The young man supported the idea. They entered the so-called ghost house. The companion stepped into the castle. Everyone was amazed by the rich shelves and unique architecture that make this castle exceptional. A lively conversation began about the future of the building, and the young man offered to stay here for a while if he wanted to. The owner of the throne expressed a desire to explore every corner of the castle. There was already a commotion in the castle. The Viscount ran his fingers thoughtfully over his glass, wondering when they would finally be able to find Axe. Suddenly, he was called out to and turned around, starting a conversation with a stranger in an elegant tuxedo. The stranger smiled, as if hiding some secret, and, as he left, remarked that he wanted to introduce the Viscount to the princess. At that moment, the Count heard the girls nearby discussing him, which made him smile in the hope of pleasant words. However, it turned out that the content of the conversation was not at all what he expected to hear. Irritated, he slammed his fists on the table and declared that they still had not been able to find the defective mage causing the alarm. The Viscount was seized with horror. The young man next to him expressed regret. The heated Count began to angrily curse and shout about the consequences that could follow if the problem was not solved quickly. Meanwhile, the young man wondered where the young man was now, imagining him sitting on a bench, immersed in his thoughts. He felt at a loss as to what to do, but suddenly an inspiration came to him, and he headed straight to the Academy of Magicians. There he was met by a powerful sorceress. The young man handed her the case concerning the missing person, and she took the documents in surprise, clearly recognizing the name. The sorceress admitted that she knew X, and with some respect addressed him as Sir, which stunned her young companion. She noted that she only knows one side of him, implying that much remains hidden. Releasing her owl, she loudly announced a planet-wide search and reported that he had been spotted in Shiptown. The youth countered that there had been no reports of border violations in the area, considering such a possibility impossible. She revealed that the great magician laughs at attempts to find him and manipulates everyone. Hearing this, the young man realized that the missing man was a skilled manipulator who knew where he was hiding and would definitely tell everyone. At this time, a dragon with a rider on its back was flying over Shiptown. As he approached the stranger sitting on the dragon, the rider was noticed and he tensed up, sensing danger. The stranger began to shout, demanding an explanation, but the knight confidently declared that he had finally found the one they had been looking for so long. He insisted that it was definitely Reg, and rushed at him with his fists. He was wrong. Meanwhile, in a city district, a little girl was walking with her mother when her gaze was caught by an unusual object. There were many small toy bunnies scattered on the sidewalk. A crowd of people gathered at a small area where toy bunnies were being skillfully embroidered. At this time, one of the characters was having a conversation when a character called out to him, holding out a hat with coins. He said that they had received money from grateful spectators. The man praised his colleague for her initiative, and she said that people threw in coins themselves. It was promised that bunnies would be given to those who would provide important information about X and the girl with the teddy bear. People began to actively search for information because the desire to get a unique toy was very strong. The stuffed rabbits secretly hoped that they would be found immediately after arriving in Shiptown because everything seemed obvious. However, the search was fruitless. They could not find the people they needed. At this time, something important was happening in the palace. X, Luca, and Amin stood together, and the young man expressed a desire to be left alone. The queen smiled and noted that she was about to fall, perhaps because X had gotten a little closer to her first. He responded by explaining that he simply wanted to make room for Ryuki. She assured that everything was fine and that this lock was very convenient for her. After a moment's thought, she asked if the next performer had arrived yet. The door began to open, and at that moment, several mysterious figures entered the room. The characters looked closely at the strangers, and one of them said with a smile that he would like to get an autograph from X. He soon learned that among them was a guy who acted as bait. The stranger introduced himself as Urukar, the king of the slums who had been tasked with bringing back X, and invited the young man to follow him. He warned that if he refused, things would go badly. Lost in thought, the young man realized that he could not endanger others. He stood up firmly and declared that he would go, leaving Ryuko behind. X asked that no one harm anyone but himself. Urukar promised with a smile to keep the agreement. Ryuka took the boy by the hand and called out to him, but he only smiled in response. Without saying goodbye, he left, and the girl watched him with tears in her eyes. The queen asked the man why the boy was being taken away. He replied that he had been promised gold for capturing X. She said she would hire him, and the man was surprised. With a calm look, she offered 5 gold coins. Urukar's colleague, noticing the authenticity of the coins, laughed. The happy man agreed to work for Mrs. Amin. He entrusted the young man with the care of Rai. The door slammed shut, and the queen was very pleased that she had been able to settle the matter. Meanwhile, the heroine rushed to him in tears. He apologized for making her worry, thanked the queen, and promised to return the money. The girl pressed herself against him, and he asked her to stop crying. She responded with a pitiful look and demanded that he stop his antics. Looking at him resolutely, she promised to help. He hugged her tightly and thanked her for being angry with him. He stuck out his little finger and promised that everything would be fine and that he would start taking care of himself. They promised each other this by crossing their little fingers, and the stuffed rabbit added that he would never leave him. Ryuka looked at him with a surprised expression, and the rabbit straightened up proudly. Amin said she knew what had happened and that someone was looking for them. She offered to let them move to her country. He became lost in thought, lost in thought, lost in his thoughts. He thought about emptiness. X peered thoughtfully at the black ball. Suddenly, a small baby appeared in front of him. He carefully stood on the X's palm. The guy realized that, in fact, he still knew nothing about himself, and this emptiness encompassed everything around him, and the previous feeling of joy was just an illusion. He turned to the void and asked what it was that it wanted X to do for her. Emptiness listened attentively to the words of the young mage, while he apologized for the things he once forced her to do. X promised to fulfill any wish of the void, but he was surprised. Suddenly, she let out a joyful cry and said that she wanted a pillow made of slime. The young man looked at the baby with affection, smiling heartily. Suddenly, he called out loudly to Ryuku, who stood motionless with a calm and thoughtful expression on her face. The girl asked what was going on, and X said that they needed to return home tomorrow, delivering the news decisively. He asked if they were really going to leave, and she admitted that she was sad. She asked if she could come back next year, wanting to preserve those memories. The hero said that their return was possible. At this point, Queen Amin noticed that the travelers would set out on their journey tomorrow. She said that she would instruct her assistants to dismantle the tent. X replied that he seemed to have forgotten to give something in return. In response, she was amazed and seemed to be delighted. The queen then asked to accept 5 gold coins from each, to which the young man looked at her in surprise. He asked her if she was sure about this decision, and she, in turn, asked what they planned to do with the pursuers. He began to outline his plan of action to her, mentioning the Viccount. Amin expressed her dissatisfaction with the man in harsh terms and promised to give the boys a ride just in case. She admitted that she could not be sure of their safety and added that she would help them. He thanked her, and the girl stood silent at that moment. The stuffed rabbit asked cautiously if they could ride in the queen's carriage, but the boys decided they needed to think about it. The Viscount greeted the owner of the throne with a joyful smile. She asked how he was doing, and behind her stood X and Ryuka. The high society man turned around and unexpectedly met the gaze of the young magician. The aristocrat offered the job applicant a position with a salary of 3 gold coins. However, he immediately noticed that the young man was clearly unhappy. The guy firmly declared that he would never serve such a gentleman. The representative of the nobility was astonished by such a sharp and decisive refusal. At this point, the throne owner reminded him that the young man had already become one of those who serve the shrine, and sternly stated that she would not allow anyone to harm him. The aristocrat was shocked. Trying to object, he was interrupted by another young man. The new interlocutor calmly and persistently asked to listen to his request, and the ruler listened attentively and seriously. He continued to talk about his love for wine and promised to open his own wine cellar for her, after which he asked the aristocrat to shut up. The mistress was sincerely glad to hear this and decided to leave the magician and the girl together. As they left, the nobles looked extremely dissatisfied. Climbing the steps, he loudly declared that the young man would regret it. The magician himself noted that he voluntarily refused the offer, and everyone agreed that this was wonderful. After all, the lord of the city himself stood up for their defense. The girl emphasized that it was his actions that played a key role in this, and asked him to accompany her. He looked at her and agreed. However, the companion remained serious and did not raise her eyes. They walked along a quiet street. Having reached her home, she remained thoughtful, but did not forget to express gratitude. He replied that she should thank him. She suddenly realized that all this time she had been dreaming of stopping time. With her eyes closed, she hoped that something would happen now that would give her the strength to endure the upcoming trials. In her soul, she realized her deep love for him. As she continued to think, she realized that she didn't want to let anyone near him. Opening her eyes, she quietly asked if she had embarrassed him with her behavior. The soft, plush animal noticed that if he were the young man, he would have run away long ago because of her persistence, and the girl, a little irritated, walked on. The little animal decided to pretend that he hadn't heard anything. Meanwhile, the young man himself hurried to look for a slime pillow. Bending over and trying to stay in the shadow of the houses, the protagonist crept along the deserted street. 2 townspeople were animatedly discussing something near the entrance to the shop. Almost reaching the end of the street, He heard one of the townspeople announce a reward of a whole silver coin for anyone who could discover his whereabouts. This news made him turn around. The sudden mention of his name made Axe freeze in place. Confusion crossed his face as he tried to understand who was looking for him and why, but he quickly pulled himself together and continued on his way. Having moved to a safe distance from the curious townspeople, Axe slowed down and immersed himself in thought. Possible reasons for the pursuit were spinning in his head. He thought that the Viscount could not accept the refusal. He thought that no one noticed him. His unremarkable appearance and modest clothes helped him remain unnoticed. As he climbed the creaky stairs to the second floor, X encountered two guards who looked at him suspiciously. The female guard was holding an official document and examining it carefully. Before he could come to his senses, X was seized. The guards barked at him. The woman standing next to him added in a cold tone that it was useless to run, explaining that they had a direct order to deliver him to the Viscount. Hanging in the air, Axe tried to explain that he had already met with the Viscount and all issues were resolved, but the guards remained adamant. They continued to hold him in the air. A maid was watching what was happening from behind a slightly open door of one of the rooms. Hearing that the guards were not concerned with the guy's explanations, she could not stay away and stepped forward. Stepping out from the shadows, the girl introduced herself and, turning to the guards, asked whether their captive really was the owner of the inn. The maid was puzzled by what was happening, but nevertheless greeted Axe as an honored guest. In response, he said that he had simply returned to his room. X was deeply upset that even the simple journey to his own room turned into a real ordeal. Rai, with her head bowed, tried to convince the guards of the guy's integrity, insisting that he could not have done anything reprehensible. He, carefully choosing his words, tried to confirm the girl's words, but his speech, interrupted by long pauses, was lost in the air and did not reach the guards. Tears filled the young man's eyes as he declared in despair that he no longer wished to work. The guards were completely confused. They could not believe that the reason for their search was a simple refusal to work. The confused guard stepped aside to discuss the situation. X, wiping away tears, stood next to Rai, who continued to stand in the doorway, ready to protect her master. Wiping away the last of his tears, he looked hopefully at the guards, believing that the incident was over and that now he would finally be allowed to enter the hotel. However, despite his explanations, the guards remained adamant. They said that it was just their job. When the guards grabbed him by the arm, the hero began to desperately resist, trying to break free. He screamed that it was none of his business. At that moment, when the tension reached its peak, a thin chain slipped out of the pocket of his clothes. The metal slipped out of his pocket and rolled with a light ringing sound across the wooden floor of the second floor, attracting everyone's attention. One of the guards bent down, picked up the metal from the ground, and began to examine it carefully. The puzzled guards, not hiding their surprise, began to question him about the origin of the metal. The protagonist asked to return the precious symbol, explaining that the metal was given to him by Queen Amen herself. The guard, taking the metal in his hands, studied the engraving with the name X for a long time and carefully checking every detail. He was convinced of the authenticity of the sacred symbol, which signified high status and immunity. With a thoughtful expression on his face, the lawman began to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. His gaze became more attentive and respectful. At that very moment, the guards, realizing their mistake, fell to their knees before the young man, bowed low, and began to apologize for their behavior. The protagonist was amazed by such a sudden change in the guard's attitude. The guardian of order, handing the medal back to its owner, now with complete trust, explained that the Viscount's order was dictated solely by selfish motives and did not take into account his true status. Stunned by the events that were happening, the boy, stuttering with excitement, confirmed the guard's words and carefully took his medal back. In his heart, he expressed gratitude to Queen Amin for the medal she had given him, which, as it turned out, had saved him from an unfair accusation. The defenders of the law, realizing their mistake, quickly left the hotel, apologizing and assuring that the adventurer could now safely return home. The heavy door of the hotel closed with a loud bang, as if cutting off all the troubles of the past day from the cozy silence of the room. The protagonist, not hiding his happiness, spread his arms out to the sides, enjoying the moment of return. Behind him, Rai, smiling with joy, watched his sincere joy. Their appearance was unexpectedly seen by Nitra, who, surprised by what was happening, came out from around the corner to find out what was going on. If there was a better way to escape, it was through the window. That's what Nitra thought. but X, having calmed him down, assured him that everything would be all right now. Taking the first step forward, the protagonist slowly headed towards the bed, feeling how fatigue was starting to take its toll. Every movement was difficult, as if an invisible weight had fallen on my shoulders. As the trio stood near the front door, X and Rai looked with anticipation at their goal, the bed. Nitra, however, raised his head and looked up at them, smiling. The round pillow that X had been so eager for lay carelessly on the bed. After a long day of adventure, X carefully took the edge of the blanket, pushing it slightly to the side. At that moment, the hero, without taking off his clothes, fell on the bed, putting a round pillow under his head. The nice maid, standing nearby, tried to call out to him, but it was too late. He instantly fell into a deep sleep, and the heroes, deciding not to disturb him, left him to rest. An unexpected voice was heard in the Viscount's residence. The girl, lounging in a chair, says that she needs 120 medium-sized grimoires a day for the winter to make a special one for him. A young man in a suit stands near the door while the two talk. The Viscount feels like he is being ripped off. She pauses for a minute and then concentrates on recalling the very idea that could have changed the course of events. The girl reaches out to the cylinder, as if she were about to put her thought into action. The idea was to combine wind with fire, perhaps to create something new and unusual using the power of the elements. The girl scoffs at the idea. She would never do such a thing even if she had the idea. At the same time, she brings the cylinder closer to her. A rectangular hole is visible from the cylinder, from which something is evaporating. She comments with guesses that this device was made by Professor X, combining elemental magic. As a result, something was obtained. The Viscount put on an important pose, saying that his device had received high praise from the princess. In return, he asks for a reduction in the rent for this item and promises to supply her with 30 of these pieces. The surprised girl waves her hands, hinting that he needs to stop, that he needs to wait a minute. The Viscount doesn't hear her. He's lost in his thoughts. He's already happy because a new idea has appeared in his head about how to bring the price down. In his opinion, he just needs to order in bulk, and that way he can reduce costs. He offers her 120 magic stones for one rental, but for the second one she has to pay 1 stone, to which she is unable to restrain herself. She says that she did not say a word about the rental. The butler, who stood calmly with them in the same room, is asked to explain these words. He says that the stone in question serves as fuel for the product. The girl, continuing the butler's thought, completes the sentence, speaking about the transportation of these devices, and the Viscount will need 3,600 magic stones. Stunned by such large numbers, he is speechless and his eyes become empty. In horror, he screams that he is ruined. His voice pierces the space, full of despair and bitterness. They try to shout to the Viscount, but the words are lost in the void. Elsewhere, after a dream, the hero wakes up. He first opens one eye. He feels better and has not noticed how he fell asleep. At the same moment, he gets up with his feet and stretches. First, he stretches his right hand, closing his eyes. By peeling his head off the slime pillow, he confirms that this pillow is the best. Nitra meets her older brother after sleep. Behind him is a contented little sister, Rai, who puts her hands on his shoulders. In turn, X greeted them. The protagonist remembers that Rai had met with Urukar, so he asked if anything had happened, to which she replies that nothing bad had happened, that they had just talked to him. She also says that she knows him, because he looked after her when she was in the slums. The protagonist thinks about Urukar and his little sister. Maybe he didn't want to hurt her because he said he would take care of her. There was a small, silent pause in the room. No one said a word. The hero breaks the pause by saying that he is hungry and wants to go eat shashlik. The satisfied characters, smiling broadly, go to the kitchen. Already at the market, among the many food stalls, a contented Nitra is walking, humming something, and eating shashlik. Sitting down together at a table in the middle of the bazaar, the main character says that he will not take the kitten's food, so he can feel free and eat as much as he can. The hero, smiling, sits at the table and says that he still won't be able to eat as much as the kitten, but he's ready for one shashlik. Voices from people standing at a distance from Ixi interrupt this idyll. People ask about the problems in the forest, saying that they are only getting worse. 3 men near one of the houses discuss goblins, guards, and fragments of magic stones. They say that there are more and more goblins in the forest and they wanted the forest guards to do a better job, and there are no fragments. The protagonist listens to their words, which makes him think that the effect of his protective magic has ended, but he does not believe it. At that very moment, the hero grabs his head and loudly forces himself not to think about work anymore, thus attracting the attention of the girls. His sister distracts him with her voice. She addresses him. This is Rai thanking the protagonist for allowing them to stay, and also thanking him for the kebabs. X just wants to know if they can handle the house. After listening to the story, he understands that the maid does not have her own place to live and wants to rent a room in a hotel. He asks her to keep it for herself. Rai jumps up from the table, surprising the hero with her behavior, and tells him that she refuses, that she does not want to rely on him so much. He gets flustered and explains the situation, saying that he is worried if they are left homeless, they can't just leave. He offers his room if they don't mind. She became a little sad and only asked if she would cause him any inconvenience, to which the hero replies that nothing terrible will happen and tells them that they will now go home. Nitra and the protagonist begin to drift apart. Pulling herself together, Rai tells herself that she must be useful. Once in the hotel, in the main character's room, the room is divided. Nitra is offered to share a bed with a girl. In the corner, there is still a bed with a slime pillow. The maid moves away. She immediately jumps under the covers into the main character's bed, thereby surprising him. The protagonist abruptly pulls the blanket off his bed, as if awakening to a new thought or realizing the need to act. A stunned X listens attentively to the girl's words, trying to comprehend what he heard. Already under the covers, she says that she can warm the bed while she sleeps. After these words, she thanks him for letting her stay. At that very second, Nitra, turning into a cat, jumps into the bed with his little sister Rai. They feel warm together on the protagonist's bed. X watches all this, experiencing many emotions. After taking a few steps, the protagonist confidently walks across the wooden floor in his boots, his footsteps echoing quietly in the empty room. The sounds of dull thuds seem to emphasize the importance of the moment. His hand slowly reaches for the book lying on the shelf, as if guided by intuition or a long-hidden desire to find answers in this particular book. The moment is filled with quiet tension and anticipation. The main character sits on the edge of the bed in which the characters were lying. X opens the book and starts reading. He starts with the second chapter, with the section on the concept of magic. The first pages talk about how it uses magical elements and causes absurd results. It is said about those who are not subject to it, for example, animals, and also elementary magic. This is the limit for a powerless commoner. The heroes are only interested in what kind of emotionless declamation this is. The hero reads Chapter 2, Section 12, which says that mages shouldn't fall into the trap of the void so easily. The boys fall asleep from this boring book. The hero glances to the side, as if noticing something unexpected or trying to catch the slightest sound. X slowly closes the book he was holding in his hands, as if he had made an important discovery or made a decisive conclusion. The hero himself wants to sleep. He walks away with his head down. The boys are left on the bed, hugging each other. They are covered with a blanket. The slime pillow is left in the far corner of the bed. An administrator appears in the corridor and notices the hero. There is an administrator behind the counter, and X is standing in front of him. The administrator asks the hero if he wants to go somewhere. The hero wants to rent another room. Unfortunately, the entire hotel is completely occupied, but he is offered an option in the form of an attic. A man with a mustache hands him a key. On the other hand is the protagonist's hand. Accepting it, he slowly climbs the creaky stairs to the attic. The attic seemed dirty and dusty, but he liked it. The attic was cheaper than the others, so he got used to taking care of it. In the attic, there is a bed, a table, and a dusty bottle. The hero concentrates, gathering energy within himself, and uses magic. A second later, the attic begins to shine with cleanliness, as if all the dust and darkness had instantly disappeared, leaving behind lightness and light. X reaches for his robe to unbutton it. He lays down on the bed, arms outstretched, only his legs remain bent at the knees, touching the floor. He lays down on his clothes, and the book remains near her hand. The protagonist, with his eyes open, forgot what Rai said, and said something he shouldn't have said to her. He hopes she won't remember it. Chapters from the book flashed before him. It said that beastmen have good physical abilities. Nobles with magical qualities are more prone to illness. Gifted ones can cope with the void. A girl is reading a book, and in front of her is little X. She says that the old man wrote the book out of envy and prejudice. The protagonist, lying on the bed, smiles. He understands that much has changed. When his mistress picked him up, he learned a lot. He can't leave Rai and Nitra alone. His words break off. The protagonist lies with his eyes closed, lost in thought or rest. X has already covered himself with a blanket, and in front of him is a window with a falling star. He says that tomorrow is a new life and that he needs to go to bed early. X lay motionless on the bed, thoughtfully looking at the ceiling. Deep down, he clearly understood that there was no point in spending money on rented accommodation anymore. The three friends, X, Rai, and Nitra, raced forward, filled with a common enthusiasm. Kitten, as always, was far ahead. They were met by a young female manager working in a prestigious real estate agency. She asked how she could be of use to the company of visitors. X enthusiastically spoke about his recent win and how he was eager to buy his own home. The thought was spinning in his head that life was a series of amazing adventures, and one of them was buying a house. He planned to use the gold coins that the wise master Amin had once given him. The female manager politely inquired about the size of the budget, to which X proudly reported that he had 5 gold coins. The girl couldn't help but smile slightly at the unusual answer. This budget proposal was clearly outside her usual experience of working with clients. She looked at the young man carefully, realizing that with such a limited budget, finding a place to live would not be easy. However, X, maintaining a satisfied expression on his face, assured that there were no special requirements. With his head slightly tilted to the side and still smiling, he thought about how his magical abilities could transform any home. The administrator, dressed in a formal business suit, enthusiastically informed visitors that she was ready to show them the most suitable options for houses. Her graceful hand, with its impeccable manicure, pointed to an unusual structure, proudly bearing the name Rock House. The young people looked at the facade of the house with genuine curiosity, wondering how a rock could appear in the name. The administrator hospitably opened the massive entrance door and gestured for visitors to step over the threshold of the unusual home. Stepping over the threshold, they froze in amazement at the amazing interior. Their shock was increased when one of them involuntarily opened his mouth in surprise, and then quickly covered it with his hand, trying to hide his astonishment. Raising their heads up, they finally saw what had so amazed their imagination. The ceiling vaults really did resemble natural rock. They were told that they were looking at a unique design project inspired by natural rock formations. Upon hearing that the bedroom was on the 3rd floor, one of the visitors doubted its convenience. After a thorough inspection, he firmly decided that this unusual house did not correspond to his ideas about the ideal home. It was not so much the height that scared him, but the concept itself, which seemed too extravagant. The next point of their inspection was the city's slums, neglected and cramped quarters, where a completely different atmosphere reigned and a completely different type of real estate, sharply different from the well-appointed other houses. The administrator, making a wide gesture with her hand, invited them to follow her in the direction of an unremarkable building that looked more like an abandoned warehouse than a residential building. What appeared before their eyes looked more like ruins than a living space. Collapsed walls, broken bricks, and the absence of a roof created a grim picture of abandonment. Noticing the bewilderment on the visitors' faces, she sheepishly explained that the house was designed in an open-plan concept, which raised new questions. At that moment, their little companion, sensitively reacting to extraneous sounds, pricked up his ears and pressed them to his head, as if preparing for possible danger. Stepping forward boldly, he rushed in front of his master, ready for a possible attack. His fur stood on end, and his tail fluffed up with tension. His reaction was lightning fast. He managed to catch the flying stone right with his hand, demonstrating amazing dexterity and speed. The owner, overcome with anxiety for the safety of his friend, quickly rushed to find out whether he had been hurt while catching the dangerous projectile. Suddenly, 3 locals emerged from behind the ruins. Mistaken for invaders, they began making an angry noise, waving sticks and demanding that the area be immediately abandoned. The visitors rushed to clear up the misunderstanding, quickly explaining that they were just looking at the house and had no ill intentions. One of them, slightly nervous and trying to sound convincing. Having realized the true cause of the conflict, one of the heroes felt sincere regret and awkwardness for what had happened. After talking with local residents, it became clear that the house could have been habitable if not for the lack of a roof, which was now used by local children for games and entertainment. Realizing that this option was not suitable, they asked to see other available properties, hoping to find a more acceptable option. After a moment's thought, the administrator, slightly frowning and biting her lower lip, admitted that the proposed house was slightly over their budget, but she had another option to show. The next point of inspection was a cozy area. The kitchen interior greeted them with coziness and neatness. After leading them inside, she described the layout in detail. 3 rooms, a spacious kitchen, a living room, and proximity to a market where they could buy everything they needed for a comfortable life. The young man, fascinated by what he saw, imagined how he could transform this place. However, he began to be tormented by doubts. Would he be able to buy a house and get a loan without having a permanent job? Noticing his concern, the administrator approached him with genuine concern and gently asked about the reasons for his worries. In her outstretched hand lay 3 candies, like a symbol of hope and support, a quiet sign of friendship and warmth. The young man, deep in thought, tried to understand whether his heart really desired this house, or whether it was just a temporary infatuation that would soon pass. In his unusual attire, a small hat and a cloak, he was contemplating a serious step. Was he ready to buy a house, even if he had to work hard to achieve it? A slight smile touched his lips. Perhaps now it was not so much about the house, but about a simple candy. Having tried the treat, he noted with undisguised pleasure its surprisingly pleasant taste, which instantly warmed his soul and somehow magically dispelled the last doubts that tormented his heart. With a sincere, slightly embarrassed smile that made his face especially attractive, he admitted that perhaps right now, at this special moment in his life, he really needed this house. Overcoming his natural indecisiveness and inner timidity, he nevertheless decided to approach the administrator, politely and a little hesitantly, asking to give him a little more time for an extremely important conversation. She, struck by his sudden address, responded to his request with genuine surprise, and he, feeling extremely awkward under her attentive, scrutinizing gaze, lowered his eyes in embarrassment. His gaze unmistakably betrayed the most cherished desire of his entire life, which he was finally ready to voice, overcoming all his fears and doubts. Gathering his courage, he took a deep breath of fresh air, as if preparing to take the most important leap of his life. With his head held high, in which determination and slight uncertainty were surprisingly combined, he announced his intention to buy a house. The news of the purchase brought the administrator to sincere, genuine joy. He thanked the future owner with all his heart for the decision he had made. While they were leisurely heading to sign the fateful agreement, the little furry companion, completely bewildered by what was happening, only meowed in bewilderment. The ex and the administrator were talking enthusiastically in the spacious lobby of the real estate agency. The woman, beaming with joy, sincerely congratulated the young man on his successful choice of housing. Suddenly, as if drawn by a magnet, his gaze was drawn to the far corner of the room. Someone's figure was moving there. The young man froze, unable to tear his eyes away. In a luxuriously furnished room, decorated with tapestries and antique furniture, sat a young girl. The girl, adorned with an elegant crown studded with precious stones, rose gracefully from her seat. She announced that it was he they were expecting. Without thinking, he waved his hand to the stranger, as if to an old friend. But at that moment, the administrator, turning pale as a sheet, exclaimed that in front of them was Princess Lula Whiting herself. Despite the shocking news, the young man continued to smile at the girl, as if he had met an old friend. The princess rose gracefully from her seat, and at that moment the young man finally realized that this was not an ordinary girl standing before him, but a real ruler. Clutching his head, he mentally scolded himself for his short-sightedness, realizing how ridiculous he looked in the eyes of the princess. It flashed through his mind that he was a fool. She watched his reaction calmly, and her faithful servant gallantly offered her his hand. At that moment, the young man noticed how gracefully she accepted his help. He was so confused by what was happening that he began to scream from the emotions that overwhelmed him, being in complete confusion. The princess, to everyone's surprise, admitted that she had looked into his past. There was genuine sadness in her voice as she shared her discoveries. She bowed deeply and apologized, completely stunning those present. Her graceful, dignified movement left everyone present holding their breath. X couldn't believe his eyes. The princess herself bowed before him and asked for forgiveness. The butler, standing nearby, pierced the young man with a furious, penetrating gaze, clearly expressing his dissatisfaction with what was happening. The young man, gathering all his courage, dared to object to the princess, insisting that it was not proper for her to humiliate herself in such a way before him. She met his words with a calm, piercing gaze and gently reassured him, letting him know that there was no need to worry. The butler, not hiding his disappointment, turned away from the princess, clearly not approving of her behavior. X, stumbling with excitement, thanked her for her kind words, but hastened to assure her that everything was fine. The princess looked at him with genuine bewilderment, trying to understand the reason for his confusion. With a charming smile on his face, the young man thanked her for not holding a grudge against him. The girl continued to look at him with a mysterious smile, as if she was about to reveal some secret. At this point, X, feeling awkward under the gaze of those around him, admitted that he was in a difficult situation. He did not know how to address the girl. She was genuinely surprised by such a question, and a look of genuine surprise flashed across her face. The princess thought for a moment, as if trying to find the right words for an answer that seemed obvious only to her. Coming closer, she took the boy's hand, the touch light but firm. Lula said he could address her as his friend. At this moment, the princess, turning to her faithful servant, said imperiously that the time had come to announce our decision. He began his speech with an air of importance, choosing each word carefully. The butler announced that, as a sign of deepest gratitude for his services, His Majesty and he himself wished to present the young man with a house of his choice. The young man was so flattered by this attention that he could hardly speak. With a stumbling voice and a slight emotion, he muttered that it was too generous a gift, and added that he was not worthy of such an honor. When asked about his preferences in choosing housing, the young man modestly answered that any inexpensive option would suit him. The main thing is that the house is cozy and brings joy. The princess and her retinue happily announced that they had the perfect option. With a dazzling smile on her face, she announced that they had found a magnificent home for him, adding that it would only cost 1 coin. X couldn't help but smile widely as he looked at them. Everything that was happening seemed like an incredible dream that he couldn't believe in. His feet seemed to root themselves to the patterned tiles of the floor as a new chapter of his life opened up before him. The mansion that appeared before them turned out to be a real palace. The princess, making an elegant gesture with her hand towards the magnificent building, playfully winked at the young man, as if sharing his sincere delight. X, Rai, and Nitra stood side by side, unable to take their eyes off their new home. They felt that the future, which had seemed so vague, had suddenly taken on a clear outline. This majestic mansion was now theirs. As he walked up the majestic stone steps of the old mansion, X could not contain his surprise, and noted that such a luxurious house could not cost so little. After telling the story of the house, the princess couldn't help but smile and giggled quietly, imagining all the circumstances. Lula said that the house was sold for 1 coin. The hero thought to himself that if this was the only drawback, then he was completely unworthy of such a beautiful house. Seeking advice, he mentally turned to the Void, his faithful companion, who he knew always appeared at the most unexpected moments. At that moment, a small void suddenly appeared from under X's cloak. X was so astonished by this sight that he froze for a moment, as if petrified by surprise. His heart began to beat faster when he saw how the void, like a small spirit, began to manifest itself more and more clearly. Emptiness, taking a few unsteady steps with his tiny legs, found himself on the ground, looking incredibly cute and harmless. The guards, noticing the unusual creature, immediately became wary and surrounded the group, loudly declaring their duty to protect the princess. Rai and Nitra, who were behind the guards, tried to calm them down, assuring them that the little void would not harm anyone. X, realizing that the baby had become so material that everyone could see him, was deeply upset. He understood that this was a sign of the strengthening of the magical connection between them, and this could lead to serious consequences. He and the void exchanged long, meaningful glances. The hero thought with alarm that he had reached the 3rd stage of magic. The baby was getting stronger, and the creature was looking at him with its big, kind eyes, as if trying to convey its feelings without words. He knew that if the creature completely invaded his body and materialized, he could become either a demon king, a devil, or a hermit. The further fate of such people remained unknown, since they were forced to leave the settlement. No one knew what awaited them in the future, and this uncertainty frightened X no less than possible transformations. The butler, maintaining a serious look and straightening up to his full height, asked to examine the baby. X and Void exchanged looks of concern and determination. The butler, without wasting any time, took out a special device for reading wishes, a strange device that looked like an old camera. The hero looked at the butler in bewilderment when a piece of paper with a wish appeared from the machine. The butler, after reading the note, maintained a serious look, trying to understand the demon's desire. The princess, looking at what was happening, first frowned in bewilderment. Her thin eyebrows came together at the bridge of her nose, and then she could not hold back a smile. Her laughter echoed across the courtyard like a bell, causing everyone present to turn in her direction. Lula began to wipe away the tears that had appeared from laughter. She found what was written in the note incredibly funny. The butler, embarrassed by the princess's reaction, humbly bowed his head and asked for forgiveness, as if he was the cause of her merriment. X, breathing a sigh of relief, finally realized that everything had worked out and allowed himself a quiet smile. He turned his gaze to the little void, who stood with his arms crossed over his chest, looking at him with an expression of deep sadness. Smiling at his companion, X gave his consent, decisively confirming their intention. Emptiness, hearing these words, instantly perked up and began to joyfully run and jump, celebrating their new victory. Turning to Rai and Nitra, X invited them to inspect the house from the inside, which caused genuine joy among his friends. While the friends were climbing the stairs, the princess and the butler approached X, offering their help if necessary. Gratefully accepting their offer, he watched as the girl and the butler prepared to leave. The girl, winking goodbye, expressed tender hope for a quick new meeting. When they got into the carriage, the princess tenderly thanked Ax once again for everything he had done for them, and he, standing on the porch, waved his hand after them for a long time, trying to remember every moment of their farewell. The carriage rolled slowly along the road, carrying the princess and the butler further and further away from the majestic mansion. The princess, comfortably seated on the soft cushions of the carriage, could not take her eyes off the butler. The butler, sitting opposite, watched the princess carefully. Unable to bear the prolonged silence, the butler gently asked the princess if she remembered anything particularly funny. The princess, not hiding her pleasure, told him what had made her so happy. It turned out that the mysterious note he had read contained the simplest wish of the demon. The demon simply wanted to have his own home. The girl, her voice breaking with emotion, begged the master to give her a position as a real maid. With a soft smile on his face, he reassured her that everything was working out for the best. The heroine noted that the new mansion was very spacious and assured the gentleman of her readiness to help with the cleaning. She emphasized the impressive size of the house. With a thoughtful expression on his face, he reflected on the fact that he had originally been looking for a house solely for the three of them to live together. He had hoped that it would bring her happiness and help relieve her anxiety, but it had not. The girl stood before him, her palms folded in prayer, and he was lost in thought. Perhaps it really would be easier if she stayed and took on the household duties. He did not object to the thought. Her face instantly lit up with joy when she heard his agreement. The girl was literally jumping up and down with joy, filled with enthusiasm. At this time, her master calmly continued his speech, watching her stormy display of emotions with a slight smile. X, continuing his speech, threw a handful of coins in front of her, assuring her that it would be enough for several years. She froze in amazement at such a generous gesture. He asked her to buy some groceries. The girl was speechless when she saw the gold coin. The owner, noticing her reaction, mentally, he asked her what salary she would like to receive, but the girl resolutely answered that she did not need money for her work. The owner, with a good-natured smile, shook his finger at her, as if playfully, and said that if she ever needed anything, she should definitely contact him. She answered him with a smile, light and a little mysterious. The owner immediately understood from her look that she would hardly ever turn to him for help, even if such a need suddenly arose. The hero declared that the current matter was finished. Then, looking into the distance, he wondered where Nitra and Void had disappeared to. Suddenly, he thought he heard their voices somewhere in the distance. He opened the door and saw the missing people. They were so engrossed in something so interesting that they didn't even notice him calling out to them, continuing to look at something with curiosity. The hero guessed that they had settled in the kitchen and were looking at his creation, an endless water jug, with genuine interest. Everyone was so engrossed in studying this unusual object that they didn't notice him enter. The kitchen was bustling with life. The boy suddenly realized that perhaps it was Void who had used his magic. As if hearing his thoughts, Void turned around and gave him a joyful look, as if proud of his magical tricks. Emptiness joyfully rushed towards the heroes, shouting as he ran for them to praise him as quickly and loudly as possible. X knelt down in front of the little Void and said with sincere gratitude that he was adorable. The little one beamed with happiness. The maid gently stroked the baby's head and said with a kind smile that he was very good. In response, the child burst into joyful giggles. While Void was enjoying the attention and genuinely enjoying the compliments, X watched him with concern. He thought deeply about how important it was that all this praise not go to the little boy's head. The character clapped his hands vigorously to attract attention and announced in a firm voice that it was time to finish moving. Then the character ordered the little Void to return to him in a stern tone and categorically forbade him to go outside. He was very surprised by such an order. His face immediately darkened. The hero swung his arms wide as Void awkwardly crawled under his large cloak. He gently apologized to the little boy and added with a smile that they would have time to play later. X said that they needed a futon. Rai, hearing this, responded with confidence that they should not worry, as she knew perfectly well where to buy one. She added that they could take him there right now. After some time, they finally reached the right place. All the heroes were filled with joy. The client stood in the middle of the showroom and said in confusion that he did not know how to make a choice. Next to him was a consultant who suggested that he could personally check how comfortable each model was. He lay down on the bed, covered himself with the blanket, and noted with pleasure that the footer was incredibly airy and pleasant to the touch. When X expressed her admiration for the futon and called it perfect, Rai couldn't help but be overjoyed. However, her mood darkened when she noticed the high price, which was well over her budget. She took a deep breath and strongly recommended that the client check out the comfort of other futons on display before making a final decision. The young man took the futon in his hands, looked carefully at Rai, and, after a little hesitation, agreed with her proposal, saying that fine, he would do so. After carefully examining all the futons, they came to the general conclusion that the selection process was quite tedious. The hero thanked Nitra for her help with a sincere smile, saying words of gratitude. He gladly volunteered to help carry the things and the chosen futon, demonstrating his willingness to be useful. The protagonist said that he had managed to inspect the entire house and now felt very tired. At that moment, the Void suddenly flew out of his cape. Then he announced that it was time to start the game. The hero had to refuse the Void a joint game, explaining that now it was necessary to put aside all entertainment. The hero, clearly upset by such an answer, took offense and declared that in this case he would play alone. At this time, the moon was already shining outside, and in the house, emptiness was diligently lighting the lights. He slowly wandered around the house. Every now and then he created balls of wind that floated in the air, casting strange shadows on the walls. The character waved his hand, and a glittering ball of ice appeared in the air. The magic easily obeyed his movements, creating a transparent ice miracle. He continued to cast his spell, his face glowing with joy. The words about being called delightful kept coming back to him. Emptiness slowly walked up to the wall where the paintings were hanging. He took one of the paintings down, turned it over in his hands, examining it carefully from all sides. Emptiness acted calmly and confidently, without the slightest shadow of excitement. Someone suddenly tapped the sleeping Rai on the shoulder, and she woke up abruptly, meeting Nitra's gaze. Realizing who had disturbed her sleep, the girl looked around. A mysterious smile lit up his face, and he said mysteriously that she should immediately take a look at what was happening, because something incredible had happened. His voice sounded intriguing, raising anticipation and awakening curiosity. Rai was still not fully awake, her sleepy eyes half closed by heavy eyelids. Nitra slowly turned the door handle, and it creaked open. The girl froze in place, her eyes widened in amazement, and her breath caught in her throat. She froze in the doorway, covering her mouth with her hand in amazement. In silent amazement, Ray wondered why the paintings were floating in the air without support, experiencing mixed feelings of bewilderment and admiration. Nitra, like a seasoned acrobat, leaped lightly into the air and landed on the floating painting, a mischievous smile on his face. He announced that it was now Rai's turn to join him on this aerial journey. The girl screamed in horror as she watched her friend jump recklessly from one floating painting to another. Balancing on the edge of one of the paintings, Nitra performed complex pirouettes, causing Rai to close her eyes in horror and beg him to be careful. At first, she protested loudly, screaming that they shouldn't do this, that it was pure madness. But gradually her screams turned into laughter, and a sincere smile began to shine on her face. Gradually, the girl's fear began to recede, replaced by curiosity and a desire to join the young man in this unusual entertainment. At that moment, their attention was drawn to a mysterious figure that appeared out of nowhere. Void stood watching them, his gaze full of mystery and curiosity, as if he was witnessing something unusual. Nitra, noticing the appearance of the mysterious character, assumed that it was the hand of the void that was responsible for creating this magical space with floating paintings. The kid continued to stand, smiling mysteriously. Rai, addressing the little one with warmth in her voice, noted that he was a very good and wonderful boy. The hero confirmed that their mysterious friend was really cool, and Emptiness, hearing these words, began to smile. The hero, still smiling, took a ripe apple out of his pocket. The girl, seeing this gesture, began to stroke the kitten and thank him for being such a good boy, creating an atmosphere of warmth in the air. Rai walked happily around the house with her friends, her face glowing with joy. At one point she stopped and, holding a ripe apple in her hands, offered to give it to the master as a token of gratitude. Rai took something shiny out of her pocket, carefully turned the object over in her hands, and, without taking her eyes off it, began to speak. She took a small, shiny knife out of her pocket and, continuing to turn it over in her hands, said that it would be more convenient if they cut the apple into slices, as it would be easier to eat. Rai, peeling an apple, said that after she finished, everyone would have to change clothes. Her words scared the kitten. He turned noticeably pale. He waved her away with his hand in irritation. Deep in sleep, the gentleman sprawled out on the wide bed, taking up almost all the space. A sudden knock on the door broke the silence of the room, echoing off the walls. It was as unexpected as a clap of thunder on a clear day, but the gentleman, deep in sleep, continued to snore. A kitten and a girl entered the door with a tray of breakfast for the sleeping gentleman. Rai, holding the delicious food in her hands, wished him a good morning, and Nitra greeted Ox. Rai carefully lifted the lid off the tray, and the owner froze in admiration. On the tray lay an apple cut into thin slices. X couldn't help but smile as he looked at the exquisitely decorated apple. He sincerely admired the chef's skill and warmly noted how sweet and touching it was. He smiled broadly and, feeling genuine gratitude, thanked everyone present for such a pleasant surprise. While the hero happily tried each slice of apple, admiring its taste, everyone around him smiled and told how the little helper tried his best to help prepare this treat. X bowed his head slightly, a warm smile spreading across his face. He addressed Rai with sincere thanks, telling her that she was doing a great job, and expressed his appreciation for her contributions. The girl was so embarrassed that she couldn't look away. She looked at him without blinking, as if enchanted, afraid to miss the slightest movement or facial expression. The girl screamed loudly in delight, her face lit up with a wide smile, overwhelmed with emotion. In a burst of enthusiasm, she exclaimed that she would continue to work hard, putting all her strength and energy into her work. The heroine settled down in a cozy corner, holding a cup of tea and a plate of cookies. She broke off small pieces of the treat with leisurely movements, bringing them to her mouth. She settled herself on the edge of the bed, tucking her legs under her. She bit off each piece of cookie mechanically, barely noticing the taste. Her thoughts were absorbed in X. She imagined what he was doing now. Suddenly, the eyes of the stuffed rabbit she was petting mechanically began to glow with a soft light. Little X, pale and thin, sat right on the cold floor. He carefully held a piece of bread in his hands. His eyes showed an unchildish weariness, but he had only just turned 10. In the background sat a black-haired man. His face was deeply thoughtful, as if he was trying to comprehend something important. Suddenly, he announced that they had maple crabs today, for the first time in a long time. X turned sharply at the familiar voice, and images of the past flashed before his eyes. After their parents fell into the hands of bandits, it was his aunt and uncle who took care of the boy. The uncle, who was sitting by the fire, turned his head sharply towards X and, frowning, rudely asked what he was staring at. He called him a brat, but the aunt, who was standing nearby, gently put her husband in his place. The hero was grateful to them. There was an amazing silence all around, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the occasional singing of birds. X settled down on an old log, looking thoughtfully into the distance, where the sky met the forest. The question of how he could be useful to these people did not give him peace. A deep sigh escaped from his chest. He felt obligated. Suddenly, his gaze froze, as if he had seen something unusual. His eyes widened slightly, and his eyebrows rose slightly. A thought flashed through his mind that could change his entire understanding of what was happening. Two figures appeared before him, animatedly conversing with each other. Their conversation concerned some maple crabs, creatures that Axe had sometimes not heard of before. Their voices seemed to come from far away. One of the interlocutors, frowning, asked if the forest where these crabs live is really so dangerous. He had heard horror stories about people dying there. The second man, waving his hand, said that it was not true. The words of the strangers made the hero think deeply. His uncle's words came to mind, saying that everything grows very poorly in this forest, and that it seems to suck the life out of everything living. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a voice calling out to the boy. He jumped in surprise and turned around sharply, his heart beating faster with fear and anxiety. Flustered, he asked the strangers what they wanted. They offered to join him in the crab hunt, but warned him not to tell anyone about it. The offer sounded tempting. The young man's thoughts drifted to the mysterious maple crabs. He tried to imagine what they looked like, and suddenly remembered this was his uncle's favorite delicacy. His imagination drew strange pictures, and he became more and more absorbed in thoughts about crabs. Uncle always said that he had never tasted anything tastier than them, and now the boy had a chance to please him. Gathering his courage, he agreed to the stranger's offer. Their feet confidently walked on the ground, and the outlines of the red forest were already visible ahead. Raising his head, the boy admired the unusual sight. The leaves on the trees were glowing with bright colors. He noted with admiration that they had already arrived in this mysterious red forest. Carefully plucking one leaf, he brought it to his eyes and noticed that they were shaped like hands, as if nature itself had created this amazing resemblance. His companions were visibly nervous, their faces pale with fear. This forest really did have a special effect on people, causing inexplicable anxiety. One of the guys couldn't stand the tension and expressed impatience about how much further he had to go to the crabs, noting that the ground was squelching and hard to walk on. The boy, feeling more confident than the others, extended his hand forward and took a step, pointing to the unusual sight before them. He happily reported that this was where the very crabs they were looking for were. His finger pointed to the little maple crabs that were scurrying busily about the ground, like little workers doing an important job. Their quick, coordinated movements gave life to the scene. The young man dropped to his knees, his eyes wide with amazement. The heroes clearly intended to collect as many crabs as possible. There was a sense of anticipation in the air. Taking one crab in his hands, X carefully stroked its shell, thinking that with so much prey, perhaps he would get something too. The boys enthusiastically set about catching crabs, their faces glowing with joy and anticipation. They scurried deftly between the trees, deftly catching the crabs that were trying to escape. The hunt began successfully. But suddenly, one of them jerked his hand away, screaming in surprise, and exclaimed in bewilderment what was happening. His sudden reaction alerted the others, and everyone froze, listening to the strange sounds around them. One of the boys, trembling with fear, turned around and muttered that these were some unusually noisy flies that he had never seen before. There was genuine horror and fear in his eyes as he raised his head and saw something that made his heart beat faster. His face turned pale and his lips were dry with excitement. It was a huge swarm of insects. X, still holding the crab in his hands, did not understand anything. He looked at his companions who were shouting in panic that these were dangerous spiny reapers, predatory insects about which there are terrible legends. The guys ran away in horror, leaving the hero sitting in place in complete bewilderment. He still couldn't understand what was happening and why everyone was so scared. The young man, absorbed in his thoughts, looked down without taking his eyes off the huge swarm of insects above his head. Suddenly realizing that something was wrong, he looked up and froze in amazement. What met his eyes made his heart skip a beat. Looking at the dark silhouettes swirling in the air, he remembered with horror the stories about the prickly reapers, dangerous insects whose bite could cause unbearable pain. At that moment, his attention was drawn to a strange figure that appeared out of nowhere. Long hair fluttered in the wind, creating a mysterious glow around his head. A sharp roar, like a clap of thunder, suddenly broke the silence. It was a deafening explosion that made the earth tremble. The frightened young man mechanically covered his head with his hands, trying to protect himself. The young man slowly lowered his hands, his eyes widening in amazement at the sight of the stranger. Her long blonde hair fluttered in the wind. At that moment, he realized that it was this mysterious figure who had somehow saved him. The mysterious figure, wrapped in clothes with long hair fluttering in the wind, stood motionless with its back to the young man, keeping silent. Its slender silhouette seemed almost unreal in the semi-darkness. Turning to the young man, the stranger cast a calm, penetrating glance at him and asked sympathetically if he had been hurt. Her eyes showed genuine concern. The young man could not tear his admiring gaze away from her. Enchanted by her beauty, he could not hold back his admiring words, confessing that he had never seen such a beautiful person. Enchanted by her presence, he continued to look at her, unable to look away. Her unearthly beauty literally made his hair stand on end and his head began to buzz. As a sign of deep gratitude, the young man dropped to one knee and, bowing his head, began to express gratitude to his savior for appearing at exactly that right moment. Without rising from his knees, he slowly raised his head and continued to look at her. Noticing his condition, the stranger leaned slightly towards him. There was a soft note of concern in her voice as she noted that his legs seemed weak from excitement and asked him not to overexert himself. She paused for a moment, looking thoughtfully at the young man, and said that perhaps he was an uncut diamond whose true value had not yet been revealed. Supporting her chin with her graceful hand, she studied Axe with a keen gaze, as if trying to penetrate deep into his soul and understand all his hidden thoughts and feelings. The young man continued to sit, looking at her in bewilderment, completely unaware of what was happening. Then the stranger told him that she sensed a magical gift in him, which perhaps even surpassed her own. She thoughtfully guessed that he must have a rather weak constitution, noting that this was quite typical for those whose magical abilities were at a very high level. The young man lowered his eyes in embarrassment and turned slightly pink, confirming her guess, admitting that he really did get sick often and had never been particularly hardy. Thoughtfully tilting her head to the side, she listened attentively to his story without interrupting. After a moment of silence, during which she carefully studied his face, the stranger took a step closer and delicately hinted that if he didn't mind, she had an interesting proposition for him. The young man looked at her. Leaning towards him, she gently asked if he would agree to move in with her. With a slight smile on her lips, she explained that she wanted to help him unlock his power and asked him to become her apprentice. The young man continued to look at her attentively, taking in every word. His heart beat faster, and thousands of thoughts swirled in his head. The stranger looked at him with a barely noticeable smile, as if she already knew that he would agree. Her lips trembled slightly from suppressed excitement. He still sat there, clenching his fists so tightly that his knuckles were white. Something about that sentence made him vaguely uneasy. Having made up his mind, he took her hand and tremblingly asked her to help him find his way in magic, to reach the necessary points of development. He called her teacher with deep respect, the first time he said the word with his head bowed. She responded with a warm, sincere smile that expressed approval of his choice. The stranger gently pulled him by the hand and said that in that case, she would wait for him at her place. Then she asked him caringly if everything was all right with his family. The young man looked at her with undisguised surprise. He asked if all this was really happening. The thought flashed through his mind that if he left the family, his uncle and aunt might become happier. She confidently led him along, telling him it was time to go. The young man, full of hope, obediently followed her. Suddenly, something stopped him. He stopped abruptly, clenched his fist so hard that his knuckles turned white, and took a deep breath. Noticing his stop, she turned around in surprise. He, gathering his courage, asked her for a little time. The tired man slowly walked up the steps and stopped at the threshold of the house. Taking a deep breath, he said loudly that he was back. It was Uncle Axe, exhausted from a long day of work and heavy thoughts. Entering the house, he was surprised to find the rooms empty. The silence seemed unnatural, and the absence of familiar sounds was alarming. He expected to see someone from the household, but the house seemed deserted. Looking around, he automatically glanced towards the kitchen, where someone was usually. His gaze lingered on that spot, and he thoughtfully lowered the heavy bag he was carrying on his shoulder. As he approached the table, he noticed a plate of crab on it. It was strange, because they had already eaten crabs yesterday, and he was sure that there was nothing left. But these crabs were fresh, as if they had just been cooked. His attention was drawn to a small note lying next to the plate. Unfolding it, he read simple but meaningful words of gratitude to them for everything. This is a message from Axe. All over the place, on the mighty branches of the trees, a variety of houses were visible. When they finally reached their destination, the stranger pointed to one of the houses, proudly declaring that it was her home. The young man could not hide his amazement. He had not expected to see such a large settlement. Lightly touching the door handle, she opened the door and gestured for the young man to enter. Looking carefully at her guest, she gently remarked that he needed to refresh himself after the long journey. With graceful grace, she placed the steaming bowl in front of him. The steam rising from the dish created a cozy atmosphere. The room was filled with delicious smells from the fragrant dish. The young man was struck by the enticing aroma that made his head spin. He took a deep breath of the magical smell and admitted that he had never encountered such a delicious dish. His gratitude flowed in an endless stream. He was profuse in his thanks for the warm welcome, not knowing how to express all his gratitude. She watched him with a gentle smile that made her face especially beautiful. As he began to eat, he noticed the unusual, incomparable taste of the dish. With a light laugh, she admitted that she had been experimenting with maple crab extract, a rare delicacy. His genuine surprise and admiration touched her, causing her to smile again. Still smiling, he tasted the dish. It was clear from his face that he had finally understood the source of this amazing taste, and this made the hero feel very good. Tears of joy appeared in his eyes, not from bitterness, but from overwhelming feelings. Such exquisite food was something incredible for him, an almost fairy tale gift of fate. She realized that she had touched him deeply with her hospitality. The young man listened attentively to her every word, absorbing the information like a sponge, trying not to miss a single moment. Placing her hand on the table, she introduced herself. Her name was Alice, and she was a high elf. The words came out of nowhere. The boy was so delighted with the information the teacher gave him that he couldn't help but smile happily. It was from that moment that the boy became Alice's student, and 5 years had passed since then. During this time, he had learned a lot, and now his life was filled with new knowledge and amazing discoveries. A juicy red apple hung on a tree branch like a precious stone. Suddenly, it was swiftly cut by an invisible hand and, describing an arc in the air, softly landed right on the outstretched palm. It was X, who had already raised the apple to his mouth, about to take a bite, when Alice sternly said that he was behaving in an unacceptable manner. Not wanting to continue the unpleasant conversation, he happily announced that he would be leaving for a short while, still holding the half-eaten apple in his hand. Alice watched as Axe rose into the air, and an uneasy feeling came over her. She knew his power was growing too fast, too quickly for his age and experience. Watching his flight closely, she realized that she was demonstrating only a small part of her abilities. Behind the external carelessness and youthful enthusiasm, there was hidden enormous potential. She stood motionless, gazing at the horizon where the sky met the earth. Alice wandered thoughtfully down the street, sorting through ingredients and thinking about a new recipe. After a long flight, his tired but strong legs finally touched solid ground. He found himself on top of a huge rock, towering over a deserted wasteland. The place was not chosen by chance. Here, away from prying eyes, one could practice magic without interference. With a determined gleam in his eyes, the young man declared that today he would begin his journey to becoming a magician who would surpass his mentor. The hero was sure that to do this he needed to establish a special connection with the void, the source of power. Remembering Alice's lessons, he suddenly realized that she was teaching him not just to become a magician, but to comprehend deeper truths and wisdom. Despite her warnings, there was a strong determination in his heart to live up to her expectations. He thought about his destiny, that he was ready to become a man, ready to make a deal with the void itself to achieve his goal. His determination was unwavering. Suddenly, a horned guide appeared before him, an ancient intermediary between the world of people and the void. The creature looked at the young man attentively and asked what he wanted and what he was willing to pay for his deal. X answered without hesitation that he was ready to give absolutely everything. The guide decided to test his determination and asked him directly if he was ready to give the most valuable thing, his own life. Without a moment's hesitation, the young man answered affirmatively. His face expressed unwavering determination, and his voice sounded firm and confident. The fear of the unknown raged inside him, but he skillfully hid his true feelings. His gaze remained firm and his back straight. The horned guide, having carefully studied the young man, said that he had a suitable proposal. The terms of the deal were unexpected. The guide demanded X's talent as payment. From that moment on, his body's physical development would stop, and it would remain young forever. Despite the seriousness of the consequences, X accepted this condition without hesitation.